It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501 Integration. The journey is not too long. Just as Kimengshu was curiously looking at the endless pale green atmospheric transformer number 1 covering the surface of the ocean, a gentle electronic synthesized sound sounded in the cabin. Arrived. Ahead, People's League City number 1, the starship is about to land. Please passengers check your seat belts. With an extremely slight, almost imperceptible tremor and buzzing sound, the public starship slowly entered the port of City number 1. The hatch opened slowly. When the first public servant left the cabin, the cameras set up in every corner were slightly deflected. Within the sociology division. A huge holographic projection displays millions of miniature images. Every picture is a real-time image from a camera in City number 1. Since the first batch of public servants entered City number 1, under Zero's control, cameras throughout the city have begun busy work. Through these cameras, Zero can easily observe the status of each person in real time. The entire observation process lasted for a month. During this month, whenever they appear in public places, at least one camera will pay attention to them. 1 month later, after it is determined that they have successfully integrated into the People's Federation Society, they will be removed from the observation list. Although, to a certain extent, doing so will affect personal privacy. However, in order to prevent the situation that happened on Proxima B, real-time monitoring is unavoidable. What's more, as early as when conducting socialization training courses, the Academy of Sciences obtained the consent of all publicly supported persons. Kimengshu followed his companions and walked on the clean and tidy streets of City number 1, curiously looking at the scenes on both sides of the streets, whether it's the lush street trees or the street vendors full of fireworks. They are all things you can't see in the space parenting center. She looked at the surrounding buildings, raised her wrist, and skillfully turned on the holographic projection of the watchpoint. After checking it carefully, she smiled and said hello to her companion. I'm here, please continue. After saying that, Kimengshu turned to look at the building beside him. Shugwang, holographic film and television production and promotion company. Looking at the large gilded characters on the top of the building, Kimengshu's eyes flashed with a touch of expectation, but the young man walking at the front glanced at the building nearby with a faint smile on his lips. Well, I wish you a successful interview. Dream book. Come on. Remember to come and play with me then. Remember to report the good news if the interview is successful. Listening to the blessings coming from around him, the smile in Kimengshu's eyes grew stronger. You guys should work hard. When we succeed, we will have a dinner together. After saying that, she took a deep breath and walked toward the building beside her. The door of the building slowly opened and an electronic synthesized sound sounded in my ears. Welcome to Dawn holographic video. May I ask, do you need anything? Accompanied by electronically synthesized sounds, a robot topped a small holographic image and came to Kimengshu. She subconsciously turned her head and glanced behind her. Her companions were still waiting in place, watching her silently. Seeing Kimengshu turn around, they all showed encouraging smiles on their faces. A smile appeared on her lips again. She turned around and said word by word in a clear accent, apply. Okay. Please follow me. The robot responded quickly, turning around and heading into the building. Seeing Kimengshu turn around and walk into the building, the team walked forward along the road again. As time went on, the squad gradually dwindled in size. In the end, only the young man at the head was left. He stood still, raised his head, and looked at the solemn building in front of him, with a trace of determination in his eyes. Hello. I'm here to apply. He took a step forward, walked into the open door, looked at the robot that was coming, and said softly. A somewhat serious electronic synthesized sound came from the robot. Hello, Lin Shugwang. Welcome to the People's Federation Council. Your application has been successfully submitted. Please wait a moment. The interview will begin soon. On the other side, Ki Mengshu was sitting on a chair in the corridor. With a hint of nervousness in his eyes, she is waiting for the call from the interviewer. Although holographic image producer is not a popular profession, it is definitely not unpopular either. Therefore, the competition she faces is not small. Point in particular, the person she chose was Shuguan Film and Television, which ranked first in the People's Federation. The next one is Ki Mengshu. Hearing this call, Ki Mengshu stood up quickly, took a deep breath, and walked towards the door next to him with a confident smile. Ki Mengshu, the name is good. The interviewer stretched out his hand to drag the holographic projection in front of him and said with a smile, "Thank you." Faced with the praise, Ki Mengshu naturally responded with a smile. Suddenly, the interviewer paused slightly, and his eyes stopped at a corner of the holographic projection. "Who are you?" "Yes," Ki Mengshu said openly without any hesitation. "I'm one of the first batch of public parents born in an artificial womb and raised by society. Unlike Proxima Centauri b, the term public supporter is not considered a pejorative term in the People's Federation. It's just a most basic noun that corresponds to a natural person. Even so, the interviewer's face was still full of astonishment. Obviously, she didn't expect Ki Mengshu to be so frank about her identity. In the case of natural people around, it actually takes a lot of courage to frankly say that she is a public funded person. After all, in today's society, public funded people only occupy a very small part. Minority often represents alternatives and often receive strange looks. What's wrong? Ki Mengshu looked at the interviewer in charge of her with a faint smile on her face. "Any questions?" The interviewer shook his head repeatedly, and after calming down, he began the interview process. "Congratulations, you are accepted in just a few minutes." After noticing Ki Mengshu's solid foundation, the interviewer did not hesitate to extend an olive branch to her. "The company has a lot of benefits, and you can check the specific content on your watch." After joining the company, Ki Mengshu left the Shuguang holographic film and television building in a trance. She never thought that she would complete her job search so easily. She subconsciously raised her watch and looked at the communication record. Except for Lin Shuguang, the rest of the companions sent out the good news that they passed the interview. As for Lin Shuguang, thinking of the job he was interviewing for, Ki Mengshu shrugged helplessly. That interview would not be over in a short time. Thinking of the various job-seeking problems described by the teacher in charge of the socialization training course, she rolled her eyes in annoyance. They were all fake. She even lost sleep for several days because of this. While she was complaining in her heart, she sent out the good news that she passed the interview to her companions. Chapter 502. TSK. A slight TSK sound came from behind. Ki Mengshu turned his head subconsciously. It was the job seeker who had just participated in the interview. His face was full of gloom. Obviously, his interview result might not be satisfactory. Ki Mengshu felt a little uneasy. There were clear instructions in the socialization training course. Natural persons may have ill will towards public foster people, especially when interests are involved. Just as she was thinking about how to deal with it, the young man noticed Ki Mengshu's eyes. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I saw your interview process. The basic knowledge is really solid. The educational resources for social foster care really that good?" Ki Mengshu was stunned for a moment, subconsciously waved his hand and said, "It's okay. This aspect is mainly responsible for Ling. After selecting the future career direction, it will customize the corresponding education plan for everyone." "That's great," the young man muttered to himself. Don't you hate me?" Ki Mengshu hesitated for a moment, then asked with courage, "Maybe I stole your opportunity." Hearing this, the young man was stunned. Then looked at Ki Mengshu with a strange look. "Why should I hate you? I'm just not as skilled as you. What's more, Shuguan Film and Television doesn't want me. I have other film and television companies to go to." The young man looked even more strange. "The resources of the People's Union are very rich, and there is no need to worry about unemployment. What's more, I don't want to break the law because of discrimination against public funded people." The young man seemed to be amused by his own words and waved his hands repeatedly. "Okay, don't think too much." After a while, we can get out of the closed city. There are plenty of opportunities there. Even if Shuguang Star is overcrowded, you can also go to other planets. There are all kinds of opportunities in the vast universe. What's more, the human union encourages competition. I have been taught, since I was a child, that the capable ones are promoted, and the mediocre ones are demoted. As long as you have the ability, Professor Lu will give you a seat. So, don't say those words anymore. Be careful of being laughed at. After saying that, the young man waved his hand and turned away. Let's not talk about it for now. I have to go to the next company for an interview. Maybe, after a while, when my technical level improves, I will become your colleague. Qi Meng Shu stared at the young man's back as he walked away. Chao, who wrote the socialization training course. Why do they only teach some tricks to fool people? Science of Sciences, Sociology Division. LV Yongchang looked at the head of the Sociology Division in front of him with a strange look. Ah. You sure this is the attitude of natural persons towards public foster people? Is the situation true? The person in charge looked at the report in the holographic projection, and his mouth twitched slightly twice. It is true, Professor. We may have to change the teaching materials of social training. I am afraid we have overlooked a very important issue. At this time, Lu Yongchang also realized the meaning of the person in charge's words. He nodded and continued. According to the reports from all parties, it should be a resource problem. The resources of Proxima B are too scarce. At the same time, the emergence of a large number of public foster people in a short period of time has robbed a lot of social resources, which eventually led to the continuous deterioration of the situation. In the final analysis, Lu Yongchang shook his head. Ren Feng and others are still too impatient. Compared with Proxima B, we are just the opposite. After entering the third level civilization, the current human union is not short of resources. On the contrary, we are very short of people. What restricts the advancement of the social public foster system is not the problem of resource allocation. It is the problem of traditional fertility concepts. Speaking, LV Yongchang let out a long sigh of relief. If so, the resistance to the advancement of the social public support system will be reduced a lot. As long as we give it enough time to adapt, and with education and publicity, the human union can complete a smooth transition. The head of the sociology department nodded and said, not bad, but the original plan cannot be changed before the environment transformation of Dawn is completed, and humans walk out of the closed city. The number of public support people born will be fully restricted. Otherwise, closed cities with limited resources will follow the old path of Proxima B. After getting rid of the worry, LV Yongchang returned to his office. Looking at the half-finished design of Guangli 1 in front of him, LV Yongchang frowned slightly. I always feel that it would be too wasteful to simply transform this satellite into a war fortress. Moreover, humans currently do not have weapons that match it. Even the most powerful weapon currently used by humans, the plasma cannon, does not need a satellite as a foundation. Picture with a fluorescent green background emerged in LV Yongchang's memory. Maybe he should change the strategic positioning of this satellite. As he thought about it, he leaned back in his chair and slowly closed his eyes. Technology Tree Space Point. After being promoted to level 3 civilization, LV Yongchang did not enter the technology tree space very often. He raised his head and cast his eyes on the technology tree in front of him. The technology tree was only halfway up. The lower half of the technology tree was lush and leafy, and all the branch technologies were lit up. And the upper half of the technology tree did not even have a trunk. The reason for this phenomenon is also very simple. At that time, what the human union needed was a long-term and stable development environment. Therefore, the main technology of the third level civilization was not very attractive to LV Yongchang. On the contrary, the branch technology of the third level civilization, such as Earth-like planet transformation technology, is more in line with the needs of the human union. Of course, this does not mean that the main technology is not important. star gold carbine composite material technology, as the pre-technology of asteroid starships and the main technology of the third level civilization. LV Yongchang has already lit it up. Now, the social public maintenance system is advancing in an orderly manner. The progress of the Dawn Star transformation has exceeded half. The construction project of the Guangwei 1 planetary fortress has also been launched, and the manufacturing of asteroid starships is also being carried out simultaneously. Everything is on the right track. LV Yongchang's heart gradually became wild. He needs more powerful technology. Thinking of this, he focused his attention on the dim cursor, located in the middle and upper part of the main trunk of the technology tree. Preliminary exploration of antimatter, large particle accelerator. LV Yongchang slowly opened his eyes. The azure blue design drawing of Guangwei 1 floated quietly above the desk. LV Yongchang did not speak, but stretched out his hand to drag the design drawing in front of him. He waved his hand. He erased all the design drawings that had not yet started construction, and then he stretched out his hand to draw a long horizontal line on the equator of Guangwei 1, large particle accelerator around the satellite. Such a scale should be enough to meet the requirements, right? As LV Yongchang whispered softly, the azure blue design drawing above the desk was changing rapidly. Chapter 503 Large Particle Accelerator Around the Satellite. Professor, Academician Fang Zhu is visiting. Zeros. Electronic synthesized voice sounded in the quiet office. On the desk, a blue holographic drawing was suspended in the air. Lu Yongchang didn't look up and said directly, "Let him come in." I guess he was anxious too, otherwise he wouldn't have come directly to me. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to turn the holographic image in front of him, and once again changed some of the devices in the drawings. Just now, he temporarily halted the satellite reconstruction project. As the person in charge of the lighthouse reconstruction project, Fang Zhu was naturally confused when he learned the news. Very good point. Why is the project on hand gone? After some inquiries, Fang Zhu was even more confused when he learned that Lu Yongchang was significantly modifying the design drawings of the satellite. The lighthouse reconstruction project has been going on for 25 years. Although only some infrastructure work has been completed so far, this is not a reason to drastically change the design drawings. Then he set off directly to Lu Yongchang's office, ready to ask for an explanation. The office door slowly opened. "Lu Yongchang." Fang Zhu's voice was filled with a little resentment, but as he stepped into the door of the office, his voice quickly became softer. "There is a problem with Guangwei's design drawings." "What is the problem? Is it serious? Whose module is responsible for the problem?" "Investigate." "Strictly, I will investigate closely when I go back." Lu Yongchang, who was sitting behind the desk, twitched his mouth slightly, raised his head, looked at Fang Zhu in front of him with complicated eyes, then slowly shook his head and sighed. Fang Zhu looked surprised. The tone became more abject. "Yongchang, is there a big problem with the design plan?" Fang Zhu walked forward with a guilty conscience, stretching his neck hard to look at the holographic drawings in front of Lu Yongchang. "It's impossible. It has been zero checked many times." Seeing Fang Zhu's cautious look, Lu Yongchang couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. "I didn't say there was anything wrong with the drawings. Why are you so careful, Fang Zhu?" "No, there's nothing wrong with the drawings. Why did you stop the project?" Fang Zhu straightened up immediately when he heard that there were no problems with the design plan. Lu Yongchang looked at Fang Zhu with a half smile and said softly, "I think we need to add another device." Fang Zhu. Lu Yongchang stretched his hand across the air and the holographic image was enlarged. At the same time, Zero completed the 3D modeling of the satellite. On the holographic model, ultra-high power land-based Type 3 laser cannons can be seen everywhere. This is just the most basic weaponry on this satellite. Plasma missile silos, high-power plasma cannons, planet-level magnetic field shields. It is no exaggeration to say that this modification plan has forcibly turned this natural satellite into a super weapon with a diameter of 100,000 square meters. The only flaw is that this all-round supermodel super weapon cannot move at will. It can only orbit the Dawn Star in its own orbit. Pity Lu Yongchang looked at the 3D model of the lighthouse fortress in the holographic projection, with a flash of regret in his eyes. It can only be used against civilizations within level 4. The corners of Fang Zhu's mouth twitched slightly. Point. Listen, do people say it? What does it mean? That it can only fight against civilizations within level 4. This thing. Even if the 4th level civilization comes, it won't get much benefit, right? Fang Zhu complained in a low voice. No, no, no. Lu Yongchang shook his head seriously and denied repeatedly. The gap between the 4th level civilization and the 3rd level civilization is so big that you and I can't imagine it. The gap between the two is even wider than the gap between the 1st level civilization and the 3rd level civilization. I doubt it can even resist an ordinary starship in a level 4 civilization. It's such an exaggeration. Fang Zhu's eyes were filled with astonishment, and he asked in an incredible tone, the weapons deployed on Phonosone can destroy our asteroid-level flagship, Earth, in 10 seconds. Isn't this enough to withstand an ordinary starship from a level 4 civilization? Lu Yongchang did not speak, but turned his attention to the long ring-shaped tube in the equatorial region of the satellite. Point. Fang Zhu noticed his gaze. Particle accelerator. Is this why you stopped the project? In the holographic model, this particle accelerator occupies the most precious equatorial region of Fani. What a waste. Fang Zhu frowned. We obviously have several particle accelerators. Why do we spend so many resources to build this big guy? In order to study antimatter. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath, then exhaled a long breath, and said bluntly, humanity should also prepare to enter the 4th level civilization. Antimatter is the key technology for entering level 4 civilization. Hearing this, the expression on Fang Zhu's face gradually became serious. What do you mean? Level 4 civilization may use antimatter as energy. Antimatter is the anti-state of normal matter. For example, anti-electrons, also known as positrons, have the same mass as electrons, but carry a positive charge. Point. Another example is antiprotons, which have the same mass and spin as protons, and have the same lifespan, but they carry a negative charge. Point. As for the antineutron, although it has no charge, its magnetic moment is opposite to that of the neutron. Point. When these antimatters come into contact with positive matter, they will annihilate each other and release extremely large amounts of energy. Point. This energy far exceeds the energy produced by nuclear fusion. Facing Fang Zhu's question, Lu Yongchang did not hesitate and said in a positive tone, not bad. The fusion energy gained from heavy nuclear fusion is too small, so we basically don't need to consider it. And like nuclear fusion, from the 1st level civilization to the 3rd level civilization, we have basically squeezed out the potential of light nuclear fusion. Remember, the flagship of the latter civilization? Lu Yongchang cast his gaze to infinity, with a faint expectation deep in his eyes. It can manipulate gravity and even enter curvature navigation. The energy required is definitely not something that small nuclear fusion can provide. Fang Zhu turned his head thoughtfully and looked at the holographic image's side. But what about the storage problem? Fang Zhu frowned. Humans have done a lot of research on antimatter as early as the Earth era, but due to preservation issues, research progress is not optimistic. The preservation of anti-electrons and antiprotons may be relatively simple. It only needs to be restrained with a magnetic field in a vacuum environment. For the current human civilization, it is very easy. But what about antihydrogen atoms? Fang Zhu looked at Lu Yongchang in front of him with confusion. Since we are studying antimatter, we must solve the problem of preserving antihydrogen atoms. P.S. Regarding the plot in the first 2 chapters, Lin Shuguang enters the parliament for an interview. There are also basic positions in the parliament. Zooting is the most basic position. PPS. Thanks to Mr. Geolima for the master certification. Chapter 504 Atomic Magnetic Moments and Particle Traps. Faced with Fang Zhu's question, LV Yongchang stood up from his seat slowly, waved his hand, and opened another holographic image. I already have some ideas about the storage measures for antihydrogen atoms. Particle trap device. LV Yongchang pointed to the holographic image beside him and introduced it in a relaxed tone. This is the name I gave it. Particle trap. Fang Zhu frowned, looking at the familiar yet somewhat unfamiliar device in the holographic image, and subconsciously asked, magnetic field confinement, antihydrogen. Atoms are not charged, LV. Yongchang chuckled. It is indeed magnetic field confinement, but who said that magnetic fields can only confine charged particles? As the second in command of the Academy of Sciences, Fang Zhu had already come up with a plan in his mind. When he heard this, he had a bit of realization in his eyes, and said with some hesitation, "You mean, atomic magnetic moment, atomic magnetic moment is the effective part of the sum of various magnetic moments inside an atom. Its source is mainly divided into two aspects: the orbital motion of electrons around the nucleus and the spin of electrons." Hearing Fang Zhu's hesitant tone, LV Yongchang's smile became more intense. He responded in an affirmative tone, "Yes, it is the atomic magnetic moment. In the Earth era, it is an extremely difficult task to constrain electrically neutral atoms with the help of the magnetic moment generated by the rotation of atoms. But now, our technology for manipulating magnetic fields is becoming more and more sophisticated. Under Zero's control, it is enough to complete the corresponding capture and confinement tasks." As he spoke, he swiped the holographic image in front of him. The projection screen quickly turned an angle. The full picture of the device appeared in front of Fang Zhu. The whole device is like a long tube. The tube is surrounded by layers of superconducting magnets. These superconducting magnets, under Zero's control, will form an extremely complex magnetic field in the vacuum cavity of the tube. When the antihydrogen atom passes through the cavity, the magnetic moment generated by its own rotation will interact with the magnetic field. In this way, the magnetic field will firmly bind it to the central area of the vacuum cavity. As long as it is ensured not to contact any substance, annihilation will naturally not occur. Humans will have the opportunity to observe antimatter. Next to the equipment drawings, a slowly fluctuating curve slowly appeared. Schematic diagram of magnetic field used to extract antimatter atoms. This is the internal magnetic field curve calculated by Zero. LV Yongchang shrugged. It's just a theoretical thing at the moment. Everything will have to wait until the big Guanghui one is completed. Fang Zhu looked at the slowly fluctuating curve in front of him and took a deep breath. It was that familiar feeling again. Since the Earth era, as long as he stood next to LV Yongchang, he felt like a waste every moment. He slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air and quickly let go of the sense of urgency that flashed in his heart. He is no longer the same as the Earth era. He pondered for a moment and spoke clearly word by word. "Okay. Listen to you. What other arrangements are there? Tell me together. As the saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them." Time flies. 30 years later, Earth calendar year 2450. In the blink of an eye, 30 years have passed since the first batch of public fosters completed the coming of age ceremony and entered the surface cities of Dawn to start working. During these 30 years, the 3 space foster centers have fostered a certain number of public fosters every year. However, under the precise control of the Zero-Sum Academy of Sciences, the number of public fosters born each year is basically consistent with the number of deaths in the Human Alliance. Therefore, although the number of natural births is still declining year by year, the total population on Dawn has maintained a steady growth. The proportion of public fosters has also gradually increased over the past 30 years. Gradually, public fosters have become a unique group in society. On the one hand, the surface environment of Dawn has not yet been transformed, and humans can only live in the only 6 remaining surface cities. After all, the space in the city is limited. As time goes by, fresh blood is constantly injected, and the originally slightly empty city has gradually become full. It is not crowded, but the number of people walking on the city streets has obviously increased a lot. Therefore, the competition in the city is also relatively fierce. The group of public fosterers who invest educational resources in a targeted manner naturally has an advantage. But fortunately, there is zero control, and the absolutely fair, open and transparent promotion channels keep the competition in the city in a virtuous cycle. On the other hand, compared with natural persons, public fosterers are more inclined to artificial wombs and social surrogate fostering systems in terms of fertility concepts, because of the education they have received. since childhood and their personal experience. Public fosterers of the right age and who are married often apply for quotas and use artificial wombs and social surrogate fostering systems to keep their children. Unlike natural persons, under the subtle influence of education, public fosterers do not interfere too much with their biological children. They often only go to the space nurturing center at critical times and offer their care and blessings to the new generation. Therefore, these new generations are becoming more and more indifferent to traditional family affection. Although the traditional concept of family affection is gradually lost under the education of the social foster care system, their inner sense of identity with the human group, or the sense of honor for the human union, has increased significantly. This new concept naturally caused a certain degree of impact on human society. But no matter what, under the joint efforts of the Parliament, the Academy of Sciences and Zero, the two groups still get along very well. At the same time, the transformation project of the Guangwei planetary fortress has also come to a successful endpoint. Although Guangwei can only be regarded as a satellite of the Dawn Star, but considering its huge size, LV Yongchang still gave it the name of planetary fortress. The reason is simple. Being handsome is a lifelong thing, Professor. The door of the office slowly opened, and Fang Zhu's voice came. The satellite ring particle accelerator has been completed. Hearing this, LV Yongchang, who was sitting at his desk and perfecting the antimatter theory, suddenly paused. The next moment, a brand new holographic projection automatically unfolded in front of him. In the picture, it was a Lumina that had been transformed into a steel planet. He slowly stood up from his seat, subconsciously staring at the intricate pipeline system on the surface of Lumina, with a bit of anticipation in his eyes. Finally, done, he muttered to himself. Then, he came back to his senses, with a bit of excitement in his serious expression. Prepare for the first test run. From today on, mankind will truly unveil the veil of antimatter. Chapter 505: Anti-electrons, anti-protons and anti-hydrogen atoms. Aurora, City Number 1, Academy of Sciences headquarters in the first laboratory of the Human Union. Similar to the past, most of the senior members of the Academy of Sciences gathered in the first laboratory. The huge holographic projection in front of the laboratory shows the various parameters of the satellite ring particle accelerator. Unlike other starships or large experimental devices, Light Satellite Planetary Fortress is unmanned. Each of its parts is remotely controlled by Zero through a long-distance communication device. On the one hand, this can save a lot of space. Whether it is a starship or other large facilities, human survival supplies often take up a lot of space. As a fixed turret face to face with Aurora, LV Yongchang simply designed it into a remote control mode. On the other hand, the energy gathered in the satellite ring particle accelerator is too terrifying, and it is specially used to study antimatter. If there is an operational error, the collected antimatter comes into contact with matter and the two are annihilated. The energy released is no joke. After all, once positive and antimatter begin to come into contact and annihilate, all the mass of both will be converted into energy. E equals mc this. Energy will be far greater than nuclear fusion. Therefore, for safety reasons, as the carrier of the satellite particle accelerator, Light Satellite Planetary Fortress will not arrange personnel inside. Prepare to start the first experiment. LV Yongchang's voice came from the central area of the laboratory. Now, start preparing anti-electrons. In the holographic projection on Light Satellite 1, thousands of miles away, one instrument after another began to operate under the control of 0. Anti-electrons, as the basis of antimatter, are actually very common substances in the universe. A very small amount of anti-electrons will continuously land on the surface of the planet in the form of cosmic rays and high-energy particles. Even in the Earth era, there is a small amount of antimatter around humans. For example, bananas release an anti-electron every 75 minutes. The potassium-40 contained in it will produce anti-electrons during the decay process. So, in a sense, bananas are the antimatter weapons mastered by humans. Of course, the human body containing potassium-40 will actually produce anti-electrons. As for the preparation method of anti-electrons, it is not complicated either. By irradiating a pinhead-sized millimeter-thick gold with a short pulse laser, A large number of anti-electrons can be obtained. The principle is also very simple. With the help of a short pulse laser, electrons are ionized and accelerated to pass through a millimeter thick metal gold. In this process, the electrons interact with the gold nuclei. The electrons lose energy. This energy will be converted into matter and antimatter. Thus, a large number of anti-electrons appear. In a sense, this is the simplest way for energy and matter to achieve mutual conversion. In the holographic image, in a high purity vacuum environment, short pulse lasers continuously irradiate the experimental samples. Ding. Anti-electrons detected. Zeros. Electronic synthesized sound came from the speaker. The next moment, the magnetic field generation device waiting on the side immediately started working, capturing all the escaping anti-electrons in the ethereal cage. Anti-electron capture is successful. Magnetic field confinement is complete. LV. Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. Preparing anti-electrons is the simplest step in the entire experiment. Next, start preparing antiprotons. Unlike anti-electrons, the manufacture of antiprotons is relatively cumbersome. To make it, we have to use a recently completed large-scale particle accelerator on the satellite ring. Light satellite 1. The long-distance communication device received the order from the Dawn Star with a buzzing sound. One fusion reactor after another began to work. The extremely huge energy was infused into the particle accelerator located at the equator through thick pipes under Zero's control. The particle accelerator started. A large number of protons were accelerated to near the speed of light by the energy provided by the magnetic field. Under the control of the particle accelerator, these protons collided. The large amount of kinetic energy carried by the protons was converted into matter. Antiprotons appeared. The satellite ring particle accelerator is operating successfully. Antiprotons have been detected. Antiprotons have been successfully separated. The unchanging electronic synthesized sound sounded in the quiet laboratory, stirring up layers of ripples in everyone's hearts. With a gleam in Yongchang's eyes, he calmly issued the second order: start decelerating. At present, the high energy antiprotons in the particle accelerator are running at a speed close to the speed of light under the action of the magnetic field. To capture it, it must be decelerated first. This requires a special device, the antiproton decelerator. With the help of this deceleration device, the speed of the antiproton will be greatly reduced, and it will be trapped by the magnetic field. LV Yongchang silently watched the data flashing across the screen in the holographic projection. Suddenly, his eyes moved, and the solemn expression on his face also relaxed a little. Fang Zhu, who was standing next to him, saw the change in the expression on LV Yongchang's face, and subconsciously asked, "Successful?" Before the voice fell, the electronic synthesized voice sounded again, "Successful. Deceleration. Capture. Program is being executed. Capture. Successful." Compared with the Earth era, the current particle accelerator is more efficient. It produces antiprotons at a much higher speed. But even so, it was not until a week later that the Academy of Sciences obtained enough anti-electrons and antiprotons for an experiment. Their mass can even only be described in micrograms, but this is much better than the Earth era. LV Yongchang stared blankly at the two empty holographic images. In front of him, there were two magnetic bottles composed of magnetic fields invisible to the naked eye. Inside the seemingly empty magnetic bottles, a large number of anti-electrons and antiprotons were bound respectively. They are the raw materials for making anti-hydrogen atoms like hydrogen atoms. An anti-hydrogen atom is composed of an anti-electron and an antiproton. He calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Get ready to start the second acceleration." The large particle accelerator started running again. This time, in the particle accelerator, the first anti-hydrogen cloud in human history will appear. Time passed by minute. The atmosphere in the laboratory became more and more solemn. Unlike the previous preparation steps, the production of a large number of antihydrogen atoms contains a little risk. Once the particle trap fails to play a restraining role, these antihydrogen atoms will contact the container wall. The consequence of contact is naturally annihilation. Even if there is only 1 microgram of antimatter, the energy released is extremely huge. Even Yongchang, who was confident, seemed extremely nervous at this moment. He took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and stared at the holographic projection in front of him, not daring to relax at all. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506, Bold Conjecture. Under the control of the magnetic field, the antiprotons and anti-electrons entered the predetermined fusion chamber. It is a tubular cavity with a high purity vacuum inside. In the cavity, the antiprotons and anti-electrons gradually approached each other under the action of the magnetic field, collided, and fused with each other. Soon, an antihydrogen atom composed of an antiproton and an anti-electron also appeared. In the Shugwang star laboratory thousands of miles away, a reminder sounded. Ding, ding, ding. Antihydrogen atoms are detected. Yongchang showed a trace of excitement on his face. He waved his fist vigorously and said in a deep voice, "Start the particle trap to capture and constrain the antihydrogen atoms." The moment the voice fell, an extremely powerful magnetic field quickly appeared in the fusion chamber. Under the control of Zero, the surrounding superconducting magnets formed an extremely complex magnetic cage in the tubular cavity. It interacts with the atomic magnetic moment of the antihydrogen atom and indirectly binds it in the particle trap. As time goes by, the number of antihydrogen atoms captured in the particle trap increases rapidly. Gradually, the weight of the antihydrogen atoms in the particle trap has reached 1 microgram. In the simulation image given by Zero, these antihydrogen atoms combine with each other and eventually form an extremely thin antihydrogen cloud in the particle trap. Although the weight of this antihydrogen cloud is only 1 microgram, but it is already the largest amount of antimatter ever produced in human history. At the moment the antihydrogen cloud was born, a large amount of observation data was transmitted from various observation facilities. Even LV Yongchang could only get a little insignificant information from the dazzling data. Therefore, for the scientists of the first laboratory of the Human Union, the real battle has just begun. They need to analyze a large amount of data to analyze the antimatter at the true macroscopic level. Although there are anti-electrons and antiprotons in cosmic rays, antimatter at the macroscopic level still only exists in particle accelerators. According to the definition of matter and antimatter, the two should be in an equal relationship. In other words, the total amount of matter and antimatter should be equal. If the two annihilate each other, the entire universe should be a pot of rich energy soup. But so far, the universe discovered by humans is composed of matter. This means that there must be some factors between matter and antimatter, resulting in an imbalance between the two. Therefore, the universe eventually developed into its current state. Everything is composed of matter. Antimatter only occupies a small part and will be annihilated and disappear in a very short time. LV Yongchang hopes to find out the reason from antihydrogen, which will also be of great help to humans in controlling antimatter in the future. Late at night. The lights in the first laboratory of the Human Union are still bright. Everyone is excited to analyze the data generated by the observation device. With the help of Zero, the efficiency of data analysis has been greatly increased. But even so, this observation data that fills up an unknown amount of hard disk space cannot be analyzed in a short time. Like other researchers, Tao Yuda methodically processed the various data in front of him. Suddenly, his brows frowned slightly. An incredible idea came to his mind. He put down his work without hesitation, stood up and walked towards LV Yongchang. Professor Tao Yuda slowed down his pace, came to LV Yongchang, who was busy processing data, and shouted in a low voice. LV Yongchang paused. When he heard the voice. The next moment, he raised his head and glanced in the direction of the voice. After seeing Tao Yuda, he put down his work, raised his hand to rub his sore eyes, and asked in a gentle tone, "Tao Yuda, have you found anything new?" Tao Yuda hesitated for a moment and lowered his voice again. "Professor, there is no major discovery, but I have an idea." Idea? LV Yongchang was stunned for a moment and then said, "Tell me." A hint of entanglement flashed across Tao Yuda's face, as if he also felt that his idea was a bit shocking. Professor, I want to try to turn off the particle trap. Hearing this, LV Yongchang's eyes suddenly widened. Turn off the particle trap? What do you want to do? No wonder Lu Yongchang was so surprised. Once the particle trap is turned off, the antihydrogen cloud trapped in it will spread rapidly and then contact the tube wall of the particle accelerator. Then there will be an annihilation reaction point. Although the energy generated by the annihilation of 1 microgram of antihydrogen is not much point, but it is enough to open a big hole in the fragile particle accelerator. Ahem. Tao Yuda stretched out his hand and scratched his head, saying a little embarrassedly, Professor, anti-electrons and anti-protons have opposite parts compared to normal protons and electrons. If these opposite factors accumulate and superimpose on the macroscopic level, will antimatter be given some unique properties? For example, anti-gravity. That has always existed in theory. Hiss. LV Yongchang took a breath and looked at Tao Yuda in front of him with an unbelievable look. This isn't it a bit too incredible? Although research requires bold guesses and careful verification. But this guess is too bold, isn't it? Looking at LV Yongchang's shocked eyes, Tao Yuda said anxiously, Professor, just turn off the particle trap for a short time. If you control the time well, it won't cause any harm. We just need to observe the direction of movement of these antihydrogens. LV Yongchang didn't say anything, but frowned and looked at the holographic projection on the side. In the projection, it was a simulated image of the antihydrogen cloud, provided by Tao Yuda, who hadn't received a response for a long time, looked slightly dim, lowered his head and whispered, Professor, I know this guess is a bit exaggerated, but I still hope. Give it a try. LV Yongchang's gentle voice interrupted Tao Yuda's words. However, it is definitely not possible to directly close the particle trap. The temperature of these antihydrogens is very high, and they are too active now. We have to cool them down first. Tao Yuda looked at Lu Yongchang in surprise as he analyzed seriously. Professor, do you agree? What? Lu Yongchang turned his head and glanced at Tao Yuda and said with a smile, just because it's exaggerated, won't you try it? What if it really succeeds? Chapter 507, the beginning of the 4th level technology tree. A few days later, under the order of LV Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences completed a series of preparatory work. The preparation work was not complicated, but it took a lot of effort from the Academy of Sciences under the order of LV Yongchang. Zero controlled the robot to dismantle the particle trap device and transport it directly to the surface of Dawnstar. The reason is also very simple. On the one hand, during the experiment, the complex magnetic field formed by the particle trap device will disappear temporarily. Antihydrogen molecules will also lose their restraints. Although it is a very short time, it still means risk. Antihydrogen molecules will collide with the inner wall of the device and annihilate, and the large amount of energy released will cause considerable damage to the particle accelerator. In order to avoid this unnecessary risk, it is naturally the best choice to use a particle trap to transport the antihydrogen to a safe place. Perhaps someone will ask why it is not transported to an unimportant corner of Guangwei, but why it is transported to the surface of Dawnstar with great effort. This involves the second factor. The purpose of this experiment is to observe the reaction of antimatter to gravity at the macroscopic level. Antihydrogen molecules are very light, and they move at a very high speed. This creates a problem. It may be difficult for humans to observe their reaction to gravity. It is even very likely that before they can be observed, these antihydrogen molecules collide with the tube wall and are directly annihilated. In order to avoid this unexpected situation, LV Yongchang decided to start from two aspects at the same time. On the one hand, increase gravity. The solution is simple. Just transport it from Guangwei to Dawn. Compared with the weak Guangwei, the 1.9 g gravity on the surface of Dawn can greatly amplify the reaction of antihydrogen molecules to gravity. Second, reduce the movement speed of antihydrogen molecules. This requires a brand new technology, particle cooling laser bombardment technology. The technical principle is not complicated. Use photons as ammunition to bombard the antihydrogen molecules bound by the particle trap with The kinetic energy of the bombardment. These interhydrogen molecules are continuously decelerated. The above two measures can maximize the reaction of interhydrogen molecules to gravity. Start slowing down. LV Yongchang's voice rang out in the laboratory. At the same time, in the particle trap device placed on the ground of Dawnstar, beams of high frequency and high power lasers were emitted from the generating device. In a very short period of time, photons collided with interhydrogen molecules several times. The speed of interhydrogen molecules decreased rapidly. When its running speed dropped to the predetermined target, LV Yongchang spoke again and issued a second order: prepare to close the particle trap. Countdown. 10, 9. The countdown echoed in the laboratory. Every researcher stared at the holographic projection in front of them. Especially Tao Yuda, who held his breath. If interhydrogen molecules on a macro scale can really achieve anti-gravity, then the distance between humans and the fourth level civilization will not be far. After all, everyone present remembered deeply the flagship of the latter civilization, playing with the mysterious gravity in the palm of its hand. 2. 1. Turn off the particle trap. On Dawnstar, the particle trap device placed somewhere in an open space stopped running. The interhydrogen molecules that lost the magnetic field restraint had a chaotic trajectory. Soon, under Zero's control, tremendous energy gushed out from the matching fusion reactor, and the particle trap started running again. A complex magnetic field was quickly generated, and the antihydrogen molecules that had just escaped were firmly restrained in the magnetic field again. The whole process is complicated, but it actually only takes tens of milliseconds. At the same time, a large amount of observation data burst out in front of everyone. The laboratory was extremely quiet, and every researcher carefully observed the data in the huge holographic projection. Suddenly, Lu Yongchang shook his head slightly inside. What a pity. 1 second later, Zero also completed the calculation of all the data. A 3D simulation image appeared in the huge holographic projection. In the image, the interhydrogen molecules were firmly bound in the magnetic cage. As the device stopped running, these interhydrogen molecules began to escape. Because of the slow movement speed through the screen, it can be clearly seen that these interhydrogen molecules fell to the tube wall below under the influence of the gravity of the Dawnstar. The next moment, the device started again. The complex magnetic field pulled these interhydrogen molecules back into the magnetic cage. Tao Yuda looked at the simulated holographic screen, sighed with frustration, and took over LV Yongchang's unfinished words. Yes, it's a pity. Antimatter is still affected by gravity. It can't achieve anti-gravity. LV Yongchang didn't have much regret on his face. In a sense, such experimental results did not exceed his expectations. Antimatter must not be the key to open the door to gravity control. There is no other reason. Up to now, there is still no technology option about gravity above the technology tree. Deep in his mind. Thinking of this, LV Yongchang's memory of a few days ago emerged in his mind. At the moment when the interhydrogen molecule was successfully manufactured, the long silent technology tree space became active again. The dim cursor marked initial exploration of antimatter gradually became brighter. A thin white line stretched out from it and slowly extended upward under his gaze. The thin line continued to extend and soon came to the top area of the third level technology tree. The fog that originally covered the top of the third level technology tree also slowly dissipated. Antimatter mass production plan. The thin line continued to extend upward, and soon, with a slight tremor in the technology tree space, the dividing line between the third level civilization and the fourth level civilization appeared in front of him. Antimatter engine. At this point, the cursor was already very dim, and the text on it was also blurred. But at that time, LV Yongchang still tried to open his eyes wide, and tried his best to see the cursors above. Preliminary application of antimatter. Antimatter bomb. Advanced application of antimatter. Gamma ray burst. Professor? Tao Yuda's voice came from the side, interrupting LV Yongchang's memories. What should we do next? The observation experiment of interhydrogen molecules has not been completed yet. Do we need to send them back to Guanwei? LV Yongchang was about to nod his head in agreement, and the extremely vague cursor text in his memory reappeared in his mind. He shook his head slowly and gently rejected Tao Yuda's proposal. No, Tao. Yuda looked at LV Yongchang in front of him with some doubts, who looked a little fanatical. Then, try annihilation, LV. Yongchang's expression became more and more excited. I need data on annihilation after positive and antimatter contact. Chapter 508 Annihilation. Everyone present expressed confusion about LV Yongchang's request. Yongchang, as the second in command of the Academy of Sciences, Fang Zhu on the side asked first, why do we need to release these hard-earned antimatter? The observation experiment has not been completed yet. If it is completely released, our experimental progress will stagnate for a long time. Fang Zhu's words aroused the approval of many people. As for LV Yongchang, he smiled and shook his head. The data collected in the past few days is enough for us to study. When we finish processing the data in hand, a new batch of interhydrogen molecules should also be manufactured. As he said, LV Yongchang's expression became a little serious. On the one hand, the annihilation of positive and negative matter at the macroscopic level is a field we have never set foot in. I want to use it to peek into the scene at the beginning of the Big Bang. What exactly caused our universe to be composed of matter in the end? Hearing this, everyone in the laboratory was moved. For scientists, exploring the mysteries of the universe is like a deadly poison, attracting their attention all the time. On the other hand, speaking of this, LV Yongchang paused for a moment and said again, although our efficiency in producing interhydrogen is very low at present, we still need to lay some foundation for the application of antimatter engines, or weapons and equipment made with the help of antimatter, or require macroscopic data on the annihilation of positive and negative matter as a basis. After hearing these two reasons, Fang Zhu decisively changed his position and nodded in agreement. As for other researchers, when they heard the first reason, they had already decided to support LV Yongchang's approach. After all, who can resist the attraction of the proposition of peeking into the origin of the universe? Of course. The so-called release of antimatter is definitely not simply closing the particle trap and then throwing this precious microgram of interhydrogen molecules directly into the outside world. If this is really done without the help of professional equipment, humans may only see an extremely brilliant and extremely expensive large explosion. This is too extravagant. Therefore, in order to obtain as much data as possible, under the order of LV Yongchang, more than 10 engineering ships began to build a special space laboratory in the empty space far away from Dawn and Guanghui. At that time, this microgram of interhydrogen molecules will come into contact with 1 microgram of hydrogen molecules in this space laboratory and open a door to a brand new scientific research field that humans have never touched before. Time flies. 1 month later the space laboratory was completed. If LV Yongchang said, before they finished analyzing all the observation data, the large particle accelerator around the satellite reproduced 1 microgram of interhydrogen molecules. However, this time, LV Yongchang did not order the particle accelerator to stop operating. If you want to study antimatter in depth, a mere microgram is definitely not enough. In addition to antihydrogen, he even has to produce helium. October 24th, 2450 in the Earth calendar. In the first laboratory of Dawn. The expressions of every researcher are nervous and a little excited. Zero's electronic synthesized voice kept ringing in the laboratory, reporting the progress of various preparations in the space laboratory. Professor, all preparations have been completed. With the sound of the last electronic synthesized voice, the laboratory returned to its original calm. LV Yongchang stared at the monitoring data in the holographic projection. The data showed that the precious microgram of interhydrogen molecules was firmly restrained by the magnetic cage in the center of the high purity vacuum reaction chamber, different from the simple particle trap used to restrain interhydrogen molecules. The magnetic cage in the reaction chamber is more complex. To put it simply, it is composed of 2 layers of magnetic cages. The inner magnetic cage is mainly used to restrain interhydrogen molecules. The outer magnetic cage is used to control the movement of hydrogen molecules. As for why this is done, it is naturally to better control the contact between the two. LV Yongchang checked the data again and after confirming that it was correct, he took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Inject an equal amount of hydrogen." As soon as the words fell, a slender probe pierced the surface of the magnetic cage, that is, the interlayer between the outer magnetic cage and the inner magnetic cage, and accurately sprayed out a microgram of hydrogen. Start the particle cooling device. Almost at the same time, the second order was issued. Point: in order to better control these hydrogen molecules and antihydrogen molecules, the experiment needs to reduce their running speed as much as possible. Point: the high power laser generator was then started. Point: under the irradiation of beams of high frequency lasers, the molecular movement speed inside the magnetic cage quickly decreased, and the temperature in the vacuum chamber quickly reached near absolute zero. Point: looking at the data in the holographic projection, Yongchang's expression became more and more solemn. Point: next, the most critical step: close the inner magnetic cage, change the operating rules of the outer magnetic cage, and at the same time, reduce the space of the magnetic cage to control the contact between the two. As soon as the words fell. Point: the inner magnetic cage used to bind the antihydrogen molecules disappeared instantly. Point: the operating rules of the outer magnetic cage also changed rapidly, consistent with the original operating rules of the inner magnetic cage. The magnetic moments of hydrogen atoms and antihydrogen atoms are the same. Point: at the same time, the outer magnetic cage began to shrink inward under the control of zero, forcing hydrogen molecules and antihydrogen molecules to get closer. Finally. Point: the two successfully contacted. At the moment when the two contacted, the annihilation reaction occurred. The explosion occurred. Although the total amount of positive and antimatter was only 2 micrograms, they still generated extremely huge energy. By releasing energy according to the mass energy formula, 2 photon beams with the same frequency and opposite directions burst out instantly from the central area of the reaction chamber, hitting the inner wall of the reaction chamber fiercely. This is the gamma ray produced by the mutual annihilation of positive and antimatter. At the same time, countless observation data poured into Zero's optical quantum computer body like a tide. The annihilation reaction lasted for a short time. Point: the gamma rays slowly dissipated, and the 2 micrograms of positive and antimatter in the reaction chamber also disappeared completely. This is the first time that humans have obtained data on the annihilation of a large amount of positive and antimatter at the macro level. Point: the first thing that needs to be verified is whether the energy generated by the annihilation of positive and antimatter conforms to the mass energy formula. Point: if the energy released after the annihilation of the two is less than the theoretical value given by the mass energy equation, it means that the annihilation of matter and antimatter at the macroscopic level is not complete. Point: simply put, 1 microgram of antimatter cannot completely annihilate 1 microgram of matter. This can explain why the universe is ultimately composed of matter, not antimatter. This will directly overturn previous human cognition, but it will also bring new research directions to humans. Chapter 509. Parity is not conserved. A tense atmosphere spread in the laboratory. Point: Zero quickly processed the various data sent back from the space laboratory. Point: not long after, Yongchang got the answer. It met the standard. Point: the energy generated by 2 micrograms of positive and negative matter just met the standard value derived from the mass energy formula. Point: the moment he saw this result, Yongchang subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Point: if the two values are not equal, it will be a heavy blow to the physics mastered by humans. After excluding this thunder option, Yongchang once again invested in processing the data. Point: these complex data, like bricks, laid the foundation for the Academy of Sciences' subsequent research. Professor, the satellite particle accelerator has found abnormal data. Zeros. Electronic synthesized voice sounded in Yongchang's ears. Yongchang subconsciously raised his head and looked at the holographic projection that appeared beside him with a blank look. Point: lines of key data came into view. This is Yongchang's spirit suddenly lifted. He quickly stood up from the chair and raised his hand to enlarge the holographic screen in front of him. Point: his abnormal behavior immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding researchers. What's wrong, Fang? Zhu frowned and glanced at the holographic screen in front of Yongchang and asked in a low voice, is there a problem with the particle accelerator? Yongchang did not respond, but looked at the data in the holographic projection with a serious expression. So, that's it, he muttered to himself. LV Yongchang's actions and behaviors completely aroused Fang Zhu's curiosity. He hurriedly put down the work in his hands, stood up and came to the holographic projection. Parity is not conserved, just. As Fang Zhu was carefully checking the data, LV Yongchang suddenly said, abnormally high parity is not conserved. What does this mean? Fang Zhu, whose research direction is not here, frowned and asked in a low voice. It means the truth of the material universe. LV Yongchang said excitedly, at the beginning, our universe was in a singularity with infinite density and energy. Then, under the Big Bang, the universe expanded rapidly. Elementary particles continue to appear. At the same time, particles and antiparticles continue to appear. At this time, the number of the two should be equal. The universe at this time is more like a pot of high temperature particle soup composed of quarks and gluons, until the weak interaction force begins to take effect. The number of quarks and antiquarks has changed. In the particle soup, the number of quarks gradually dominates the to annihilate each other, and the remaining particles constitute our current universe. Of course, these are all my inferences at present. LV Yongchang shrugged and said, the real scene is probably not something that humans can explore at present. It doesn't matter whether the inference is correct. What's important is that these data can provide a lot of help for our next research. Perhaps, after finding a way to mass produce antimatter, we can start studying antimatter engines. The central area of the Milky Way, sir. There is a new discovery. The voice of the subordinate sounded inside the quiet artificial planet. As the voice sounded, a light curtain automatically unfolded around sweeper 9527. Probe number 912,133,165 successfully found the second planet of the KZQXT 771 star system, Ross 154. The voice of the subordinate continued to come. To our surprise, we found the remains of civilization on this barren planet. Hearing this, Sweeper 9527 changed his original lazy appearance and immediately stood up from his seat. It quickly raised its tentacles and swiped them on the light curtain. Just a second level civilization, Sweeper 9527 said somewhat dissatisfiedly. What can a mere second level civilization know? They don't even understand their own star. The subordinate was silent for a while and once again presented a brand new data to Sweeper 9527. No, we think that the death of Hua has a lot to do with this secondary civilization. The detector analyzed all the remaining buildings. They were built at the same time, about 170 to 180 years ago. The expression of Sweeper 9527 changed slightly, and the working indicator light of the external memory storage device near the thinking organ flashed rapidly. When did Hua die? Faced with such a coincidence, Sweeper 9527 could no longer maintain his original calm attitude and observed the data sent back by the detector more carefully. But what can a level 2 civilization do? They don't have the technology of curvature navigation, and they are even using backward nuclear fusion energy. Sweeper 9527 shook his head repeatedly. I can't imagine that a level 2 civilization can help a level 7 dimensional creature. But anyway, thinking of the urging message sent by the mother civilization not long ago, a trace of cruelty flashed in Sweeper 9527's eyes. It's better to kill by mistake than to let it go. Let the detector explore all star systems within a radius of 50 light years. A mere level 2 civilization can't go far. Import the architectural style into the database, and once found, immediately implement the cleaning plan. The subordinate's expression was stern, and he immediately responded, yes. After turning around and giving the order, a hint of hesitation flashed across his face. Only use the basic detector. Isn't this a bit too? After all, our basic detector is not equipped with any weapons. Sweeper 9527 sneered disdainfully. Are you scared by the pastoral sect? What damage can a second level civilization cause to our detectors? Even if they have the chance to enter the third level civilization in the past 200 years, they have only mastered simple plasma weapons. Hearing this, the hesitation on the subordinate's face slowly dissipated. You're right. It's just a small second level civilization. Why should he be so careful? Could it be that he was really scared by those dimensional creatures of the pastoral sect? Thinking of this, the subordinate raised his tentacles and knocked hard on his thinking organ, trying to make himself more clear-headed. Okay, let the detectors start looking. Sweeper 9527's expression changed slightly. What are the recent movements of the pastoral faction? In theory, the information about Hua's death should have been passed to them. No abnormalities have been found so far. The subordinate responded quickly. The mother civilization is still looking for these cunning creatures. They hide too well. Sweeper 9527 nodded without comment. For the Sweeper civilization, the combat power of dimensional creatures is not very good, but their ability to escape and hide is indeed first class. He has already experienced this from Hua. P.S. I'm dizzy from looking up information. I can't do it anymore. I'm just talking nonsense. JPG chapter 510. Who would pick up rags in a proper and civilized manner? Dawn Star Earth calendar year 2451. Human civilization, immersed in antimatter experiments, naturally has no idea what is happening in the center of the galaxy. It took a whole year, and under the leadership of Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences successfully established a series of theories about antimatter. Once the theoretical foundation is laid, the next step is naturally the specific application. Yongchang has long been coveting the antimatter engines and antimatter weapons in the technology tree. But there is still a huge problem lying in between. The problem of creating antimatter with the manufacturing efficiency of laboratories. It is simply impossible for today's human civilization to use antimatter on a large scale. There are two main reasons. On the one hand, using particle accelerators to produce antimatter is too expensive and can be said to be a loss-making business. On the other hand, antimatter production is too low. Compared with the Earth era, humans can indeed produce antimatter countless times faster. It only takes a week to obtain a microgram of antihydrogen atoms. But this kind of snail-like manufacturing speed is obviously not enough for humans who have already become a level 3 civilization. Therefore, a new antimatter manufacturing solution is imminent. The research goals of everyone in the Academy of Sciences have also turned here. But this technology, which is located on the dividing line between level 3 civilization and level 4 civilization, is obviously not that easy to conquer. After several setbacks, Yongchang sat in his office with a solemn expression, pursed his lips, and looked at the holographic image in front of him. In the holographic image, dense experimental data is presented. Professor, the experiment failed. Zeros. Electronically synthesized sound came from the speakers on the side. Yongchang's face didn't show much expression. He just nodded slightly. He was tired of hearing this sentence during this time. The Academy of Sciences has proposed many plans for producing antihydrogen atoms, but without exception, none of them met Yongchang's expectations. Professor, academician Tao Yuda is visiting. The electronic synthesized sound sounded again. Let him in. Yongchang took a deep breath, cheered up and said. The next moment, the office door opened, and Tao Yuda, with a pair of dark circles under his eyes, stood at the door excitedly. Looking at Tao Yuda's expression, Yongchang's originally stable mood fluctuated slightly. Could it be that he has a new manufacturing idea? Thinking of this, Yongchang looked at Tao Yuda with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Professor, I have an idea. Sure enough, Tao Yuda walked into the office door excitedly and shouted loudly. Yongchang's heart beat violently several times. He suppressed his inner excitement, sat up straight in his chair, and pointed to the seat in front of his desk. Sit down first. Speak slowly, Tao. Yuda nodded hurriedly pulled out his chair, and sat opposite Yongchang. Then, he raised his wrist, opened his watch, and summoned a small holographic projection. Under Tao Yuda's operation, the content of the small holographic projection was quickly synchronized in front of Yongchang. Feasibility report on antimatter collection device. Collect. Yongchang's expression froze, and he asked subconsciously. Why does it feel like it's different from what he expected? Tao Yuda cleared his throat. Professor, although the universe is made of matter, in a vacuum environment, there are still many antiprotons and anti-electrons mixed in cosmic rays, and wandering in interstellar space. Since the efficiency of artificially producing antimatter is too low, we can completely change our thinking, create a large number of antimatter collection devices to collect antimatter in the universe. Looking at the plan in the holographic projection, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. How should he evaluate this report? It's possible, but not much point. Although there are many antiprotons and anti-electrons in the universe, they are too rare. If we only collect data near the Dawn Star, the results that take several years will not even compare to the output of the Large Particle Accelerator of the Ring satellite operating at full power for 1 month. But after all, it is a business without capital. As long as time lasts long enough and there are enough collection devices, humans will sooner or later be able to collect enough antimatter in the universe for use. This picking up rags, Lu Yongchang subconsciously asked, who in a serious civilization picks up rags? Tao Yuda's mouth twitched. How can this be called picking up rags? How can we say that things related to a third level civilization are just picking up rags? Tao Yuda's voice became softer and softer, and he was still mumbling obscure terms such as antimatter collection array and circumstellar system detection array. Okay. Lu Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head. Let's not talk about this plan yet. What mankind needs now is a solution that can produce antimatter stably and efficiently. We don't have that much time to collect antimatter floating in space. Even so, he still put this option as a backup plan. It can also serve as a detector around the star system, and it can also collect antimatter in interstellar space. Best of all, it doesn't use much energy. Kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Earn resources. Not shabby. After sending Tao Yuda away, Lu Yongchang took a deep breath again. 0. Close the door. No one is allowed to enter unless there is an unexpected situation. After learning from the last lesson, LV Yongchang added a precondition to the command. After all, he couldn't always expect Zero's underlying logic code. Right after the voice fell, the office door slowly closed. After LV Yongchang confirmed it, he leaned back in the comfortable chair and slowly closed his eyes. At this point, he could only ask for help from the technology tree space. With a thought, his consciousness came to that familiar space. The fluorescent green background and the technology tree with bright white light. Unlike the last time, after completing the construction of various antimatter theories, the technology tree, which was originally barren in the upper half, now looked full. LV Yongchang looked up. One after another white cursors came into view, but none of them attracted his attention. A few seconds later his eyes stayed on the top of the 3rd level technology tree. It was a dim cursor with a brightness of 50%. Antimatter mass production plan. Looking at the clear font on the cursor, LV Yongchang's consciousness became more serious without any hesitation. He focused his attention on the dim cursor. A dizzy feeling came over him. Following that, a sense of clarity as if transcending came. Various theories related to antimatter were integrated in LV Yongchang's mind, and some of the original difficulties were quickly resolved. As time passed, a plan slowly emerged in his mind. Chapter 511. In the office, LV Yongchang slowly opened his tightly closed eyes, exhaled a breath of turbid air, and reached out to take a bag of high concentration nutrient solution handed over by the robot. When sucking the nutrient solution, LV Yongchang showed a little confusion on his face. I always feel that something is strange. He shook his head vigorously, and the strange feeling slowly dissipated. Because he was eager to record the plan in his mind, he did not take this strange feeling to heart and regarded it as some subtle sequelae after the brain overclocked. 0. Convene a meeting of the Academy of Sciences, he said in a deep voice, while writing and drawing on the holographic interface in front of him, on the feasibility of mass production of low temperature antihydrogen atoms by colliding excited state positronium with antiprotons. On the holographic screen, a line of text quickly appeared. Earth calendar year 2455. The first laboratory of the Dawn Star Alliance Academy of Sciences was brightly lit. Not only the first laboratory, the 6 surface cities of Dawn Star the Space Nurturing Center, the Ice Giant Star Gold Mining Station. The scene is also brightly lit. Ice Giant Synchronous Orbit, Star Gold Mining Station. Point Hope, who finished a day's work, was not tired at all. Point he sat in his seat, staring at the holographic image in front of him. Point just like Hope. Point at this moment, all the awakened personnel in the Quanrelian focused their attention on the holographic image. Point at this moment, the holographic images of the Quanrelian are playing the same picture. In the picture. Point every researcher stared at the holographic image in front of him with full concentration, checking every possible problem. Everyone. LV. Yongchang's steady and powerful voice came from the loudspeaker. After 4 years of hard work, the first real antimatter manufacturing device of the human union was successfully launched. 425 years ago, the first nuclear fusion reactor was launched, which helped humans get rid of energy problems and opened the door to the interstellar era. And today, the mass production of antimatter means that humans are about to get rid of the title of low-level interstellar civilization. After more than 400 years of hard work, human civilization has finally gained a foothold in the universe. I hope, I expect, and I believe that one day, human civilization will make its own voice to the universe. May the glory of mankind last forever. As soon as the voice fell, a warm applause rang out in the laboratory. Hope, who was far away in the ice giant, couldn't help but slightly reddened when he heard the last sentence. 400 years ago, when he was still a child, Lu Yongchang's words made him want to survive. 400 years later, it's still the same person, and it's still the same words. His nose twitched slightly, and he murmured to himself, "May the glory of mankind last forever." Amid the warm applause, LV Yongchang stood there quietly with a smile on his face, waiting. When the applause died down, he spoke again. "I declare that the first trial run of Phoenix number 1 will start now. Phoenix number 1, the full name is Phoenix number 1 interhydrogen atom manufacturing device. As the name suggests, it can produce a large number of interhydrogen atoms. As for why it is interhydrogen atoms, just like nuclear fusion mainly uses deuterium, tritium, and helium, interhydrogen atoms are the easiest antimatter to produce. The huge device set up on the surface of Guangwei started running the moment the order was issued. With the energy supply provided by several fusion reactors, Phoenix number 1 continuously produces antiprotons and positronium. Then the two collided with each other in the reaction chamber of Phoenix number 1. One by one, low temperature interhydrogen atoms appeared, and under the guidance of the magnetic field, they slowly entered the pre-designed storage chamber. Interhydrogen atoms have been successfully detected. The smooth electronic synthesized sound rang out in the laboratory, immediately causing a cheer. LV Yongchang quietly looked at the huge holographic image in front of him. He knew that this was far from over. For Phoenix number 1, it is not difficult to create antimatter. The real test is actually to confine and store antimatter. The characteristics of antimatter are destined to make it impossible to store it in a normal way. Once it comes into contact with matter, an extremely violent annihilation reaction will occur. LV Yongchang does not want to see the day when the warships of human civilization turn into a group of extremely brilliant fireworks while sailing. Therefore, in the past 4 years, a lot of time has been spent on the storage technology of a large number of interhydrogen atoms. A device very similar to particle trap was born. In the antimatter storage device with a high purity vacuum environment, there are 3 layers of magnetic fields. These 3 layers of magnetic fields are powered by 3 power supply lines respectively, in order to prevent unexpected situations as for the disappearance of all 3 layers of magnetic field. LV Yongchang believed that, if it really came to that, the human starship must have suffered an irreparable destructive blow. Then it would be a good choice to use the antimatter in the storage device to play its final role. Antihydrogen atoms successfully entered the storage device. Successfully stored. Zeros. Electronic synthesized voice interrupted LV Yongchang's thoughts, looking at the big words in the holographic projection. LV Yongchang's tense face finally revealed a faint smile. At this moment, the door to the 4th level civilization has been loosened. Professor, I think there is still a problem with Phoenix 1 after the trial operation of Phoenix 1. Tao Yuda hurried to LV Yongchang, HMM. LV Yongchang frowned subconsciously. Any other problems? With energy supply? Tao Yuda replied hesitantly. Currently, Phoenix 1 still uses fusion reactors for energy. I think this is probably not a long-term solution. I did a simple calculation. If we want to support an interstellar war, the antimatter we need. Tao Yuda raised his wrist and turned on the small holographic projection on his watch. It's about this number. A number appeared on the holographic projection point. LV Yongchang's expression slightly changed. I understand what you mean. Ah. You worried about the production rate, Tao. Yuda nodded quickly and affirmed. Yes, no matter how much antimatter we reserve, it will run out one day. Therefore, in order to cope with interstellar wars, our antimatter production rate must be maintained above a standard. And to meet this standard, Tao Yuda swallowed lightly. After calculation, we may have to fill the fusion reactor and the Phoenix No. 1 antimatter manufacturing device on Guangli. Hearing this, LV Yongchang's expression sank. It was obviously not his original intention to use the entire Guangli as an energy manufacturing base. Let's go to my office first. LV Yongchang whispered. Warm tips. If you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Chapter 512 Megastructure, Dyson Sphere. In the office. LV Yongchang sat on the chair, frowning, his tangled eyes fixed on the holographic projection in front of him. Tao Yuda was right. He had just performed a simple calculation. According to the current energy supply efficiency of the fusion reactor, humans need to transform the light satellite into an energy planet with a fusion reactor on its surface. To meet the human demand for antimatter in the war, antimatter is not obtained out of thin air. When matter and antimatter come into contact, energy will be released. And making antimatter from matter requires the same or even more energy. After all, energy loss is inevitable in the production process. In other words, the current Phoenix 1 is similar to a large and efficient energy storage device. Perhaps someone will ask. What is the role of antimatter? Isn't it good to use the energy of the fusion reactor directly? This involves a question of energy conversion efficiency. Compared with antimatter, fusion reactors are too gentle and the rate of energy release is too slow. 1 G of antimatter can directly release all the energy equivalent to 2 G of matter in a very short time. By annihilating with 1 G of matter, the energy released by 2 G of fusion raw materials is far less than the energy generated by the annihilation of matter and antimatter, both in terms of quantity and rate. Even for hydrogen bombs, the energy conversion efficiency is only 0.7%. The energy conversion rate of antimatter energy is more than 140 times that of antimatter. Therefore, even if it takes more energy to make it, it is the undisputed choice of the fourth level civilization. LV Yongchang's right hand half clenched into a fist, and his knuckles gently tapped on the desk in front of him, making a rhythmic tapping sound. Transforming Guangli into an energy planet is definitely not in line with his expectations. Then, transforming the other planets in the Gliese 555 star system into energy planets. This is not a small project. The subsequent mining of fusion raw materials alone is also a large project. Suddenly, LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. He suddenly raised his hand and patted his forehead gently. I know. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes, and he said repeatedly, I know what to do, Tao. Yuda trembled slightly, and he was startled by LV Yongchang's fierce action. But after hearing what LV Yongchang said, he hurriedly leaned forward slightly and asked hurriedly, Professor, have you thought of any good way facing Tao Yuda's eager questioning? LV Yongchang showed a mysterious smile on his face. Planetary level nuclear fusion. What do you think of, Tao? Yuda was stunned. Gradually, an incredible idea emerged in his mind. His eyes widened slightly, and he muttered to himself, the sun. No, I'm wrong. It should be the main star. Professor, you want to use Gliese 555 as an energy source? Of course. LV Yongchang smiled and nodded. Have you heard of the Dyson Sphere project? An idea in the Earth Age. An artificial celestial body with a diameter of 200 million kilometers, used to wrap around a star to mine stellar energy. To put it bluntly, it is actually a giant structure built around a star to obtain energy. Tau. Yuda swallowed hard, and then he nodded gently. Point as an old man in the Earth Age, he naturally knew this term. In the past, we might not be able to complete such a grand project, as he said. LV Yongchang stood up from his chair, reached out to open the holographic projection next to him, and called up the star map of the Gliese 555 star system. But now, humans already have the technology to build a Dyson sphere, transform a red dwarf into an antimatter production base. I think this should be enough to meet the needs of human civilization. Time is money. Point for human civilization in rapid development. Time is the most precious thing. Point therefore, after deciding on the research direction, LV Yongchang did not hesitate, and even did not take a break, and convened the Academy of Sciences meeting again. In terms of materials, the main frame of the Dyson sphere uses carbon in material. In the conference room, LV Yongchang said, while reaching out to make a slight adjustment on the holographic projection, a small amount of star gold can be added to the key parts. He shook his head helplessly. Our current star gold reserves can't withstand the construction of this big guy. There was a burst of laughter in the conference room. Point indeed, as LV Yongchang said, the star gold mined from the interior of an ice giant alone is absolutely impossible to support such a huge project. Consumption. Ding. Cheng Wang, how is the research progress of artificial stellar gold? LV Yongchang turned his head to look at an academician sitting on the side of the conference table and asked, there is only one ice giant in the Gliese 555 star system. We can't put all our hopes on it, Professor. We encountered some difficulties during the manufacturing process. Ding Cheng Wang, an academician of the School of Materials, responded quickly, but it's not a big problem. We can solve it. LV Yongchang nodded gently. Point. Since academician Ding Cheng Wang said so, he didn't ask any more questions. As the chief of the Academy of Sciences, he only needs to grasp the direction of civilization and a few key technologies. Some trivial branch technologies do not require him to worry too much. The main material problem of the Dyson sphere has been solved. The next most important thing is the structure of the Dyson sphere. While speaking, LV Yongchang stretched out his hand in the air and called up a brand new holographic projection. Point in the center of the holographic projection is a reddish red dwarf star. It is the main star of the star system where humans live. Gliese 555. Point with LV Yongchang's actions, Gliese 555 quickly enlarged and soon occupied the space above the conference table. Point the next second, Gliese 555, which was emitting endless light and heat, was wrapped in a completely black shell. Everyone knows that most of the energy released by a star is dissipated in the universe. LV Yongchang's voice sounded again. For example, in the solar system where humans used to live, each planet only absorbed 1/1000000 of the solar radiation energy. The Gliese 555 star system is no exception, and the traditional Dyson sphere is a solid shell-like object that completely wraps it up. In this way, all the radiation energy released by the star is intercepted, but this will affect the living environment of humans. In order to ensure that the Aurora star receives light, we can design this shell-like Dyson sphere as a split structure. In other words, along the trajectory of the Aurora star, the Dyson sphere is divided into two, leaving the middle area empty. As the voice fell, a crack appeared in the middle of the black spherical shell structure that wrapped the Gliese 555 red dwarf star. Some light and heat came out from the crack. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513 Dyson Sphere Phase I Project. This is an extremely large and difficult project. After various calculations, with the help of carbonine and star gold carbonine composite materials, theoretically, we can make such a giant structure. Note, it's only in theory. LV Yongchang sighed. shook his head and said again, "It will take a lot of time and a huge amount of resources. In addition, it has to resist the impact of various small and macro celestial bodies and use the power system to adjust its own trajectory at any time to ensure that it will not fall into the interior of the star. Maybe, speaking of this, LV Yongchang pondered for a moment. All the materials in the Gliese 555 star system are not enough to build such a giant structure. As soon as this was said, a burst of discussion sounded in the conference room. Then, maybe, we can reduce its coverage area. Bilen's voice sounded in the conference room point under the gaze of everyone. He stretched out his hand to operate on the holographic projection point with his actions. In the 3D simulation image, the area of the black spherical shell that wrapped the entire red dwarf star continued to shrink and finally became a ring-shaped building rotating around the red dwarf star. Dyson rings. Bilin looked at the new model and nodded with satisfaction. By increasing or decreasing the number of Dyson rings, we can adjust the energy utilization of the main star at any time. At the same time, it can also reduce the possibility of being hit by small celestial bodies. LV Yongchang looked at the slowly rotating concentric ring model in front of him and nodded thoughtfully. It is indeed a good solution, but the construction period is still too long. As he said, LV Yongchang waved his hand and opened a new projection. "I have an idea." As he said, he quickly sketched a few strokes on the newly opened holographic projection point under Zero's rendering. A brand new simulation picture appeared in front of everyone. Point in the center of the projection is a reddish dwarf star, Gliese 555 point, and around this red dwarf star, there are pieces of cloud-like devices, distributed Dyson sphere. Perhaps it can be called Dyson cloud. LV Yongchang shrugged. This should be the simplest of the three structures. Dyson cloud. Each cloud can integrate 10 Phoenix 1 antimatter generation devices. With the help of their own propulsion devices, they can maintain their own orbits for a long time. We can even increase the number of clouds at any time to control the production efficiency of antimatter. There are many advantages, and naturally there are disadvantages. Its energy absorption efficiency for Gliese 555 is not very high, at least not as good as a real Dyson sphere. LV Yongchang cast his eyes on the Dyson ring on the side, his eyes flashing. Perhaps we can combine Dyson cloud with Dyson ring. Dyson cloud and Dyson ring combination. First, implement the Dyson cloud project with lower difficulty. After the antimatter engine is successfully developed, consider implementing the Dyson ring project. As for the real Dyson sphere project, it's not too late to consider it after the human technology level rises to a higher level. LV Yongchang's plan immediately received support from many people. Compared with the extremely large Dyson rings and Dyson spheres, the decentralized Dyson cloud is undoubtedly more suitable for the current human productivity. After the plan was finalized, under the leadership of LV Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences immediately began to work overtime. A month later, the design drawings of the Dyson Sphere Phase I project, Dyson Cloud, were officially released. After several simulations and verifications by Zero, a number of engineering ships and TOT material storage ships left Dawn Star and rushed to the center of the Gliese 555 star system. While carrying out the Dyson Sphere Phase I project, the research and development of antimatter engines was also gradually carried out. As an entry-level technology for a level 4 civilization, its research and development difficulty can be imagined. 30 years later, the Earth calendar is 2500 years old. The Dawn Star environmental transformation project finally came to an end. LV Yongchang looked at the various data presented in the holographic projection, and his eyes flashed with excitement. The outside atmospheric pressure has dropped to 2.5 standard atmospheric pressures. The oxygen content is slightly lower than that of the Earth era. But at 2.5 standard atmospheres, this difference will not have any impact on humans. Nitrogen, carbon dioxide, the atmosphere transformers covering all the oceans have also died naturally and sunk to the bottom of the sea. After 100 years of transformation, Dawn finally became the second Earth in LV Yongchang's mind. Zero, tell Chairman Han. LV Yongchang took a deep breath and suppressed his excitement. 1 month later, all ports will be opened. We should go out. 1 month later, a corner of city number 1. Hope was awakened by a shrill alarm clock. After a very short period of confusion, he jumped up from the bed. After washing up in a hurry, he walked out of the house quickly. He came back from the ice giant to enjoy his vacation, but he never thought that he could catch up with this historic moment. He raised his wrist and glanced at his watch. There was less than an hour left. Hansen. That old guy, Hope said with a frown. He must have overslept again. While talking to himself, he changed his direction without hesitation and walked towards the residential area not far away. Thinking of what was going to happen next, his nose moved slightly and he breathed hard, trying to suppress the restlessness in his heart. But it was no use. At this point, even the air was mixed with some restlessness factors, constantly provoking people's fragile nerves. Along the way, people's expectant discussions could be heard everywhere. The port is about to open. They can leave a closed city. Hope shook his head and simply took a step, running hard with a beating heart in his chest and a cavity of blood. Bang, bang, bang. The dull knocking sound continued. A few minutes later, the door opened, and Hansen, who had just put on his clothes, appeared in front of Hope in a low spirit. Go, go, go. Hope exhaled a breath of hot air and pulled Hansen out. The port will open soon. We should go out. An hour later, under the excited gaze of the crowd, the gate of the city port slowly opened. Hope subconsciously held his breath. The next moment, he took a tentative breath. The breath of freedom, accompanied by a little moisture, rushed straight into his mouth and nose. I can breathe. I can breathe. His eyes were slightly red, and his trembling lips kept repeating this sentence. Like Hope, the people who got the first batch of quotas to leave the city had the same expression. Anxiety, surprise, disbelief, complex emotions constantly hit everyone's nerves, whether it was a public funded person or a natural person. At this moment, a strong impulse arose. Go out and see. Led by the robot, everyone lined up in an orderly manner and walked out of the port gate. Blue sky. White clouds. Clear water. Moist sea breeze. The sound of waves and the land at the end of the sight. Chapter 514. Hibernating personnel. Awakening area. As the first batch of humans left the closed cities on the surface of Dawnstar, human civilization also opened a new chapter. First, there are the billions of people still in hibernation that need to be addressed. Unlike those who have long since awakened, those who are still in hibernation have never been exposed to the public welfare system, nor have they experienced the century-long propaganda and education of the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament. In their old ideas, the public pension system is a deviant option. Therefore, their attitude towards public caregivers will be different from ordinary people. In order not to affect the normal implementation of the public welfare system, even though the surface infrastructure of Dawnstar has been basically completed, the Academy of Sciences has not awakened a large number of humans at once. Instead, a batch wake-up mode is adopted. As for the criterion for judging the awakening batches, it is naturally based on the value of contribution to the People's Federation. Beep, blow, blop. The looming buzzer alarm sounds from far to near, and the sound gradually becomes clearer. Who I am, where am I? Questions slowly emerged in Wang Mingyuan's slow brain. Perhaps it was because the hibernation time was too long. Thinking about these issues gave Wang Mingyuan a little headache. But the next moment, memory fragments came flooding in like a tide. He was born on Proxima B, and as a citizen of the People's Federation, working in the construction industry, countless information emerged in his mind one by one. Wang Mingyuan took a deep breath subconsciously. A strong choking feeling came from the throat and lungs. Cough, 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 accompanied by a violent cough and slight muscle twitching. He reflexively arched his back and sat upright from lying flat. At the same time, he suddenly opened his eyes. Bright space. Through the high-tech coffin-shaped hibernation cabins arranged around him, he recognized his location, the home ship, hibernating personnel awakening area. The next moment, a robot came to him. At the same time, a holographic projection unfolded. Hello, Wang Mingyuan, citizen of the People's League. Congratulations on your successful awakening. It is now September 26th, 2500 in the Earth calendar. Wang Mingyuan's pupils trembled slightly, and he stared blankly at the words and pictures slowly emerging in the holographic projection point. Although his face didn't show much emotion, there was already a storm in his heart. Earth calendar 2500 years. He remembered that he seemed to have entered hibernation in 2275 and left the Ross 154. Star system point. Calculating it this way, he actually hibernated for 225 years. Fuck. He subconsciously turned around to check his surroundings again. I felt inexplicably relieved. At the same time, a hint of disappointment emerged from his eyes. It seems not much has changed in the past 225 years. It is still the original hibernation cabin, or the original recovery area for hibernating personnel. Next, I will serve as a guide to introduce to you the changes in the People's Federation in recent years. The robot's voice interrupted Wang Mingyuan's thoughts after a period of rest. Wang Mingyuan, who had regained his strength, followed the footsteps of the robot and left the hibernating personnel recovery area. Perhaps because the resuscitation work had just begun, the silver-white home ship corridor looked particularly deserted under the cold-colored lights. Wang Mingyuan followed the robot's footsteps absent-mindedly, looking around at the surrounding facilities, trying to find the differences from 225 years ago. After 1 week of rehabilitation training, you will undergo the first physical fitness assessment. A stiff electronic synthesized voice slowly sounded in his ears. After passing the assessment, according to the relevant regulations of the Human Alliance Human Strengthening Experiment, after the germ cells are sampled and stored, you will receive a complete human enhancement program for free. Enhanced projects include second generation life extension technology, viscera mental gene fragment insertion. Wang Mingyuan subconsciously slowed down. Huh, what the hell? He quickly retracted his gaze and looked at the holographic projection in front of him with a confused expression. The second generation life extension technology is easy to understand, but what about the human body enhancement project? He quickly raised his hand, swiped the holographic projection in front of him, and read the relevant introduction carefully. Call A. Few minutes later, Wang Mingyuan breathed out the turbid air accumulated in his chest and muttered to himself, a super Earth with a gravity of 1.9 grams. Have humans finally found a place to stay? He stared at a huge planet slowly rotating in the holographic projection. Most of the planet's surface is covered by azure waters, while the tawny land has a hint of green. This is a real-time image of the Dawn Star that has completed its environmental transformation. On the side, the original appearance of Dawn Star also emerged. Planetary transformation project. Looking at the two completely different planets, Wang Mingyuan's eyes were filled with shock. Unbelievable. There are only a few lines of text describing the project. But Wang Mingyuan, who is engaged in large-scale construction projects, knows very well how many people's efforts are behind these few lines of text. There is a viewing area ahead. Mr. Wang Mingyuan, please follow me. The stiff electronic synthesized sound of the robot pulled Wang Mingyuan out of his shocking emotions. He took a deep breath and followed the robot's pace. At this time, he was a little nervous and excited, and the original disappointment had long disappeared. It seemed that he had to take back the judgment he made not long ago. During hibernation, the human union seemed to have undergone significant changes. We have arrived at the viewing area. A stiff electronic synthesized voice sounded, but Wang Mingyuan ignored the guide robot beside him. He reached out to hold the railing in front of him and pressed his body against the panoramic glass, made of transparent aluminum as much as possible. His eyes were wide open, his breathing was slightly rapid, and his eyes were fixed on an unbelievable building in the distance. What is that? Wang Mingyuan's voice was extremely hoarse. Guangwei 1. The natural satellite of Dawn has been transformed into a planetary fortress, and its main functions are scientific research and military defense. As the electronic synthesized voice sounded, a brand new holographic projection slowly emerged in front of him. Wang Mingyuan used trembling fingers to stroke the holographic projection in front of him. Megastructure project. It's actually a megastructure project. His Eyes were slightly red, and for a moment he couldn't suppress his excitement. As a large-scale engineering architect, a celestial-level megastructure has always been his dream scene point. He never expected that when he woke up, the scene in his dream actually appeared in front of him. Chapter 515 Dyson Sphere Phase Second Project and Antimatter Engine. As Wang Mingyuan dragged, the holographic introduction interface quickly reached the bottom point, but his eyes were fixed on an entry at the bottom of the holographic projection. Megastructure Project, Dyson Sphere Phase I Project. Although he was born on Proxima b, he still had some knowledge of this theoretical project. Born in the Earth era. His face flushed, and the trembling amplitude of the fingers that swiped the holographic projection became more and more intense. Sir, your heart rate fluctuations are detected to be abnormal. An electronic synthesized voice sounded at the side. No, I'm fine. Wang Mingyuan did not look back and directly interrupted the robot's inquiry. I need all the public information of the Dyson Sphere Phase I project. At this time, Wang Mingyuan was extremely excited, even more excited than when he first saw the Guanghui planetary fortress. The reason is also very simple. Dyson Sphere Phase I project. These simple Chinese characters reveal extremely important information. Since there is a Phase I project, then there is naturally a Phase Second and even Phase 3 project. As a large-scale engineering architect, Wang Mingyuan naturally could not miss the opportunity to realize his dream. Soon, lines of text and images appeared in the holographic projection in front of him. After 30 years of full construction, the Dyson Sphere Phase I project has come to an end. At present, the GLIES 555 Dyson Cloud Antimatter production system can fully meet the current human civilization's demand for antimatter. Considering the growing energy demand in the future, the Academy of Sciences will launch the Dyson Sphere Phase Second project at the right time. Looking at the few lines of text at the bottom of the project introduction interface, Wang Mingyuan's eyes suddenly lit up. As expected, how should I sign up for the Dyson Sphere Phase Second construction project? Without any hesitation, he turned his head and asked the robot beside him. This robot was only allocated a little computing power of the shipborne artificial intelligence 1, so in the face of Wang Mingyuan's inquiry, it hesitated for a few seconds before giving an answer. According to the query, you meet the project standards. After completing human body enhancement and various adaptive courses, you can go to the Academy of Sciences official website to sign up. Adaptive courses? Faced with this new term, Wang Mingyuan frowned and asked again. The adaptive course is a 1-month comprehensive training. Through it, you will have a rough understanding of the current social situation. A few minutes later, Wang Mingyuan's eyes showed some surprise. Social public welfare system. It seems that the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament have done a lot during this period. 2 months later, a city on the surface of Dawnstar. Dear Mr. Wang Mingyuan, congratulations, you have successfully passed all tests. The Dyson Sphere Phase Second project is about to start. Please prepare your personal belongings and go to Dawnstar's synchronous orbit port number 1 to board the plane. Seeing this message in the holographic projection, Wang Mingyuan, who was originally lying on the sofa to rest, suddenly jumped up and uttered a series of meaningless weird cries. After venting his inner excitement, he raised his hands, rubbed his face vigorously, and forced himself to calm down. Boarding at port number 1, he said to himself excitedly. Yes, I should pack my luggage. The surface of Dawnstar, the first laboratory of the Human Union Academy of Sciences after 3 decades of research. Under the leadership of LV Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences finally broke through the key technology of the antimatter engine. LV Yongchang stood in front of the huge holographic projection, looked up, and looked at the huge propulsion device and nozzle in the projection, with a strange light flashing in his eyes. As long as this experiment is successful, human civilization will officially cross the threshold between the 3rd level civilization and the 4th level civilization, and get rid of the title of low level civilization. The antimatter engine uses antihydrogen atoms and hydrogen atoms as fuel. Theoretically, when it starts working, antihydrogen atoms and hydrogen atoms will be injected into the reaction chamber under the action of the magnetic field. Then, under the precise control of the control system, These interhydrogen atoms will contact with hydrogen atoms and produce annihilation reactions. When interhydrogen atoms annihilate, in addition to high energy gamma rays, they will also produce some mesons among them. Neutral mesons will quickly transform into high energy gamma rays, but charged mesons have a certain lifespan point. The normal half-life is 28 nanoseconds, these mesons carrying more than 60% of annihilation energy fly at a speed close to the speed of light point. Therefore, their half-life will be extended to 70 nanoseconds. Although the time is extremely short, they can still fly a considerable distance with their ultra-high flight speed close to the speed of light point under the constraint of the magnetic field. These charged mesons close to the speed of light will be ejected directly from the nozzle of the antimatter engine. Thus, it brings an extremely huge thrust to the starship, equipped with the antimatter engine. This is the propulsion principle of the antimatter engine. It is very simple, but the benefits it brings are many times stronger than the whole thruster. The first antimatter engine propulsion test starts now. After all the preparations were completed, LV Yongchang calmly issued an order: prepare to inject antimatter. Near the Dawn Star, a strangely shaped spaceship quietly stayed in the cold and empty space point. The test starship was equipped with a small fusion reactor. Its function is to provide the most basic energy supply for the starship when the antimatter engine has not yet started. For example, the magnetic field confinement device, the central main control system, with the order of LV Yongchang, under the control of Zero, a point of interhydrogen atom was slowly injected into the reaction chamber through the magnetic field point. At the same time, at the other end, an equal amount of hydrogen atoms also entered the reaction chamber. The two quickly came into contact under the action of the magnetic field point. Annihilation began. At this moment, the mass of positive and antimatter was completely converted into energy. Among them, a small part of the energy was released in the form of high energy gamma rays, and then converted and absorbed by the devices around the reaction chamber for use by the starship. Most of the energy was released in the form of mesons within 70 nanoseconds. These charged mesons have not decayed. In this short 70 nanoseconds, they were deflected by the magnetic field and gushed out from the nozzle of the antimatter engine. At this moment, a dazzling light appeared at the nozzle of the antimatter engine. The next second, driven by these mesons that are close to the speed of light, the starship rushed forward at a very high acceleration. Inside the laboratory, the test was successful. Zero's voice rang out in the laboratory. After a short silence, a burst of warm applause and cheers came from all directions. Standing in front of the huge holographic projection, LV Yongchang's mind had already been turned upside down at the moment the test was successful. Chapter 516, Level 4 Technology Tree. After feeling the familiar movement deep in his mind, LV Yongchang's eyes flashed with joy. This feeling, the technology tree space has been upgraded. At first, LV Yongchang was a little worried when he saw the test starship galloping out like a wild horse. After all, the success of the antimatter engine project needs to be tested in various aspects before a conclusion can be drawn. But now, LV Yongchang has completely put down his heart. The reason is very simple. As of now, the technology tree space is the most accurate standard for judging whether a key scientific research project is successful. Thinking of the technology in the 4th level technology tree, LV Yongchang's heart rose with infinite expectations. He suppressed his inner excitement, turned his head calmly, and looked at Fang Zhu beside him, and called softly, "Brother Zhu, HMM." At this time, Fang Zhu's face flushed slightly, and his face was full of smiles. Obviously, he was happy about the successful operation of the antimatter engine. But even so, after hearing LV Yongchang's call, and seeing the slightly serious look on LV Yongchang's face, he immediately restrained the smile on his face, and looked at LV Yongchang with a slightly solemn expression. "Any questions?" At this moment, Fang Zhu was even ready to stop the antimatter engine in an emergency. Looking at the solemn expression on Fang Zhu's face, LV Yongchang laughed dumbly. "Don't worry, there is no problem with the antimatter engine. I want to take a break." LV Yongchang pointed to the office in the distance. "You will be in charge of the next test project, Fang." Zhu subconsciously glanced at LV Yongchang's heavy dark circles. Indeed, in the final research and development stage of the antimatter engine, LV Yongchang as the project leader, had almost no rest time point. Now that the test has basically been declared a success, it is also appropriate to take a break point thinking of this. He quickly straightened his expression and nodded seriously. Don't worry, just leave it to me. After returning to the office, as soon as his body touched the chair, Yongchang couldn't wait to close his eyes. The consciousness instantly entered a fluorescent green space point like the previous promotions. The bright white thin line continued to extend upward, and the invisible barrier between the third level civilization and the fourth level civilization was quickly broken, as the fluorescent green technology tree space continued to vibrate. Yongchang's perspective also quickly moved up. The technologies that he had studied flashed in front of him like a revolving lantern. Yongchang's attention was not attracted by these passers-by. Since entering the technology tree space, his eyes have been fixed on the dim cursor at the top. After the bright white thin line broke through the barrier of the fourth level technology tree, it quickly spread to the dim cursor. Antimatter engine. The cursor gradually became brighter. Slightly dim white thin lines extended from it, stretching upward like a tree. Preliminary use of antimatter bomb, high energy gamma ray cluster cannon. In addition to these slightly dim cursors, there is a cursor that has already been bright and attracted Yongchang's attention. Antimatter factory, primary Dyson sphere manufacturing technology. As Yongchang turned his attention to this bright cursor, a series of technologies quickly emerged in his mind. After browsing, Yongchang's expression suddenly became strange. Isn't this the Dyson cloud and Dyson ring system that humans have completed halfway? No wonder there was no reminder in the technology tree space when this technology was completed. It turns out that they took a shortcut and lit up the technology that the fourth level civilization needs to master in advance. Yongchang retracted his thoughts and extended his attention upward as much as possible, trying to see more advanced technology. Gravity. After spending a lot of energy, he only saw these two vague words. Even so, Yongchang's heart was still hot. Could it be gravity controlled technology? Thinking of the performance of the latter civilization flagship on the battlefield, Yongchang immediately confirmed his guess. It seems that we have to hurry up to upgrade the basic technology of the fourth level civilization. Near the main star, Gliese 555. Engineering ships are connected to each other to form a simple giant space factory. Its main function is to process various building materials transported by the TOT material reserve ship to create a piece of extremely large Dyson cloud. With the end of the Dyson sphere phase I project, these giant space factories built by the engineering ship hulls also disintegrated. Unbelievable. In a ship responsible for transporting personnel, Wang Mingyuan pulled the porthole and exclaimed in a low voice, I didn't expect that humans have developed to this point. It's just like watching a movie. The next moment, a strange male voice came from the side. Brother, hibernation awakening personnel, right? Wang Mingyuan turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. You are facing the strange face, he asked cautiously. It's not that he is timid, but within a few months after waking up, he found that there are big guys everywhere around him. Because of the problem with the Human Alliance's awakening mechanism for hibernating personnel, anyone who woke up before him was a hidden god. You never know whether the old man walking on the streets of the city is a researcher from the Academy of Sciences or a senior staff member from the Parliament. Faced with Wang Mingyuan's cautious questioning, the man chuckled. I'm responsible for the Dyson Sphere Phase 2nd project. Hiss. Wang Mingyuan subconsciously took a breath of cold air. Damn, this is really a big shot. How much do you know about the Dyson Sphere Phase 2nd project? The man asked casually with a relaxed look. Dyson. The main purpose of the Dyson Sphere Phase 2nd project is to build 30 to 50 Dyson rings surrounding Gliese 555, so as to increase the output efficiency of the antimatter production base, and at the same time, lay the foundation for the Dyson Sphere Phase 3 project. Wang Mingyuan calmed down and explained in detail. Good. Basic knowledge. Hearing Wang Mingyuan's detailed answer, the man nodded with satisfaction, then raised his wrist and looked at his watch. Large-scale engineering architect. How do you think this first Dyson ring should be built? Wang Mingyuan's breath was slightly choked. Don't be nervous. I'm just asking for your opinion. The man saw Wang Mingyuan's nervousness and said with a smile, it's okay if you get the answer wrong. After all, only a few people know the specific construction plan. Wang Mingyuan swallowed lightly, then raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat from his forehead. Damn it, I'll give it a try. What if I get the answer right? At this moment, his mind was working fast. Chapter 517. Looking at the gentle smile on the man's face, Wang Mingyuan gritted his teeth and answered with a brave face. First, we need to control the Dyson cloud to form a ring belt on the surface of Gliese 555 so as to minimize the radiation impact of the main star during the construction process. Then, with the help of engineering ships, adopt a multi-point parallel plan to build the Dyson ring at the same time. Specific operation method. While speaking, Wang Mingyuan raised his wrist, turned on the holographic projection function on the watch, and stretched out his hand to write on the holographic projection point as the sketch took shape bit by bit. Wang Mingyuan's voice became more and more fluent and more confident. This is the general process. Wang Mingyuan finally checked the sketch carefully and said confidently, yeah. The man took a close look at the sketch in the holographic projection and nodded casually. Then, under Wang Mingyuan's gaze, he turned his head, leaned back on the chair, and closed his eyes to rest. The corner of Wang Mingyuan's mouth twitched slightly, and he silently closed the small holographic image in front of him. Although he had expected this scene, a deep sense of loss flashed in his eyes when he turned off his watch. Dear passengers, the starship is about to arrive at the destination. Please, follow me when you arrive. The man suddenly said, your plan is very good, and it makes up for some of the defects of the original plan. Make some more preparations. You may have to explain this plan to the Academy of Sciences later. Wang Mingyuan was stunned. He widened his eyes and looked at the man beside him in disbelief. What did he hear? Explain this plan to the Academy of Sciences? What? Don't want to? The man opened his eyes slightly and cast an inquiring look at Wang Mingyuan. No. Wang Mingyuan shook his head repeatedly, and for a while he couldn't even speak clearly. Yes, of course. This is my honor. 1 year later, the Dyson Sphere Phase 2nd project was carried out as scheduled. In the Aurora Star, the Human Union Academy of Sciences is also simultaneously promoting various basic technologies. The mass production of antimatter and the advent of antimatter engines have injected new vitality into the stagnant human civilization. Driven by antimatter, a highly efficient energy source, the military strength of human civilization is rapidly increasing. Although humans have not yet mastered gravitational technology, their combat power is completely different from before. First of all, the change in the weapons system. The weapons and equipment using antimatter as ammunition has greatly increased the power of human civilization's weapons. The original electromagnetic gun, powered by the antimatter reactor, has a higher muzzle speed and a longer firing distance. This is still a small matter in the first level civilization. The electromagnetic gun projectile was loaded with a micronuclear bomb. Later, as the civilization level increased, it was loaded with a plasma bomb. And now, the Academy of Sciences has madly added antimatter confinement devices to these electromagnetic gun projectiles because of the problem of magnetic field confinement energy. Once the ammunition is loaded, the electromagnetic gun projectile without the continuous power supply of the fusion reactor can only confine the antimatter in it for several hours, but it is enough. Once these electromagnetic cannon projectiles hit the target, or are remotely detonated, or explode naturally, the antimatter in them will be released instantly. The huge energy brought by annihilation will directly tear apart the armor of the enemy starship. As for energy weapons such as laser weapons and plasma weapons, the improvement of energy performance naturally increases their power in disguise. Of course, the most crazy weapon is the large yield antimatter missile made by academician Yevgeny. The missile not only uses an antimatter engine as a propulsion system, but also carries a small fusion reactor to power the antimatter confinement device. As for the power of the missile, conservatively estimated, if it directly hits the flagship of the asteroid class Earth-only 2 shots are needed, and the asteroid class, Earth, will be completely destroyed. Point in the true sense. Equivalent is truth. Point as for the satellite class starships belonging to the 4th level civilization, the Academy of Sciences has not yet put it on the research agenda, because the research on the curvature engine and gravity control device has not been completed. Point today. Humans have only upgraded and remodeled the asteroid class, level 3, starships that they originally manufactured. Point there is also the Guanghui planetary fortress as the most powerful active defense weapon of human civilization. All kinds of weapons and equipment on it have also been upgraded and remodeled accordingly. Professor, academician. Wilson's voice came from the front, interrupting Lu Yongchang's thoughts. Have you seen Yevgeny's recent arrogance? He can't wait to show off the antimatter missiles he developed to everyone he meets. I really don't understand what the technological content of that thing is. Wilson muttered anxiously. Isn't it just adding some antimatter to the missile? What's there to show off? Lu Yongchang looked at academician Wilson in front of him with a smile on his face. Want to study new antimatter weapons? Suddenly, he interrupted Wilson's complaints. New antimatter weapons. Wilson's breath suddenly choked, and his expression suddenly became excited. Professor, are you serious? It's not that kind of bulky big thing, right? Hearing this, LV Yongchang frowned slightly and said softly, big thing, let me think about it. This thing, I guess it's really not small enough. Conservatively speaking, it can only be installed on the secondary flagship and the flagship. Oh. No, it can also be installed on Guanghui 1. The excitement on Wilson's face disappeared quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Okay. Wilson responded a little discouraged. Can I ask what weapon it is? Looking at Wilson's expression, LV Yongchang chuckled. Point he naturally knew the grudge between Wilson and Yevgeny. Point the previous words were just smoke bombs released by him with a bad taste. Point and now, it's time to reveal the mystery. Point he straightened his expression and said word by word, high energy gamma ray cluster cannon. Wilson's face changed slightly. Energy weapons made with the help of high energy gamma rays released by antimatter annihilation. How about it? Are you interested? LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows and looked at Wilson with interest. If not, I can ask Yevgeny. Maybe he will be interested in this. Wilson. Professor, I was wrong. I knew you wouldn't forget my. Okay. LV Yongchang looked at Wilson, who was playing tricks in front of him, waved his hand with a smile, and said, the relevant information will be sent to you immediately. Okay. Wilson, who got the promise, stood up from his seat in high spirits, waved goodbye to LV Yongchang, and walked out of the office. Sure enough, the crying child gets candy. Just when Wilson went out, LV Yongchang heard his mumbling. Point LV Yongchang's eyes twitched violently twice. Point who told him these things? Exclamation mark. Chapter 518 Two-Dimensional Core. After Wilson left, the office had not been quiet for a few minutes when Zero's electronic synthesized voice sounded again. Professor, academician Fang Zhu is visiting. Lu Yongchang raised his eyebrows slightly and murmured to himself, Fang Zhu, what is he here for? After thinking to no avail, Lu Yongchang slightly increased his speaking volume, raised his right hand, gently rubbed his eyebrows and said, Zero, let him in. After the words fell, the sound of the office door opening was heard. Yongchang, Fang Zhu's angry voice also sounded at the door at the same time. What? Lu Yongchang put down his right hand that was rubbing his eyebrows and asked with a slightly tired look, shouldn't you be resting these days? Well, what are you doing here? Fang Zhu did not speak immediately, but turned around and closed the office door and then quickly walked to the desk. Point Lu Yongchang frowned slightly, and for a moment he didn't understand the intention of Fang Zhu's action. Point is there anything else today that requires such care? What happened? Lu Yongchang subconsciously lowered his voice. You have to be so careful. As he said that, Lu Yongchang glanced at the robot standing next to the desk. Zero, pay attention. Copy that. Accompanied by an electronically synthesized sound, the open windows of the office quickly closed, and even the curtains were drawn. Point under the gazes of Lu Yongchang and Ling Fang Zhu reached out and pulled out the chair in front of his desk and sat down without hesitation. What should the core do? Without any nonsense, he said bluntly, I have been thinking about this issue during the past few days of vacation. I can't even sleep well thinking about that stuff. It's too dangerous. Hearing this, Yongchang's expression suddenly changed. Core point within the Academy of Sciences. This term is only used to describe one thing. Drawing the two-dimensional core given point. Perhaps because he had just been promoted to level 4 civilization, he led the Academy of Sciences to start too many scientific research projects. In his mental exhaustion, he subconsciously forgot about this fatal thing. Seeing Yongchang's serious expression, Fang Zhu sighed softly and lowered his voice. More than 200 years ago, although this thing has been silent, it is still a hidden danger if it is placed there. Yongchang's expression became more serious. What do you mean, lost it? Before he finished speaking, he shook his head repeatedly and rejected the proposal he made. No, let's not talk about whether the painting was tampered with or not. The pastoral civilization that has not yet arrived alone is not something we can handle. Then the consequences will be disastrous. After all, the original request made by painting was for human civilization to wait for the arrival of pastoral civilization with this core point. Yongchang didn't believe that a dignified 7th level civilization could be so confident about a small 2nd level civilization. Once it can observe the external environment in real time, discarding the two-dimensional core will only bring disaster to mankind. What's more, as the positioning target for transmitting information to the pastoral civilization, once the two-dimensional core is lost, human civilization will invisibly set up an extremely powerful enemy for itself. Fang Zhu's face darkened. He quickly understood the meaning of Yongchang's words. Then, what should we do? He said gloomily. We can't carry this dangerous thing with us all the time, right, Yongchang did not reply immediately. He pursed his lips hard and thought carefully about the appropriate countermeasures, but in the face of a being whose strength far exceeds his own, all plans seem so feeble. You say, how about we study this two-dimensional core? Fang Zhu's voice sounded faintly, gently touching Yongchang's heartstrings. Yongchang, who was still thinking about countermeasures, subconsciously held his breath. Fang Zhu's words made his heart beat violently. Studying two-dimensional cores? Yongchang asked in a dry voice. I'm afraid. Fang Zhu's voice became deeper and deeper. At that time, painting did not prohibit this matter. Yongchang pondered for a moment, then slowly said, maybe it's the arrogance unique to the 7th level civilization. Perhaps, in its view, it is impossible for a small 2nd level civilization to analyze two-dimensional fragments. But I'm afraid it didn't expect that it only took more than 200 years for us to become a level 4 civilization. So, a flash of emotion flashed in Fang Zhu's eyes. Yongchang, this is a great opportunity. It's only been more than 200 years since painting died. For advanced civilizations, or for the universe, this amount of time is not worth mentioning at all. If we can get some technology from the two-dimensional core and two-dimensional fragments, that would be an extremely huge improvement to human civilization. Maybe we can take this opportunity to enter the 5th level civilization. Hearing this, Yongchang looked increasingly shaken. Fang Zhu was right. The two-dimensional fragments and the two-dimensional core restraint devices alone are enough for human research, not to mention the mysterious two-dimensional core and two-dimensional fragments. Dimension has always been a restricted area that is difficult for ordinary civilization to reach. In the universe, whether it is two-dimensional or four-dimensional space, it is extremely rare and may not even exist. Without observation samples, all research can only start from theory. This undoubtedly greatly increases the difficulty of scientific research. And now humanity has a great research opportunity in front of it. Yongchang had to admit that at this moment, his heart was moved, but thinking of the miserable state of the flagship of the latter civilization, Yongchang felt a slight chill on his back. He didn't want Dawn and Light Moon to become a two-dimensional piece of paper. It can be studied. Yongchang thought for a long time and finally made up his mind, but it can't be studied near Dawn. It has to be sent to a farther place. Fang Zhu nodded repeatedly. Like Liu Yongchang, he also knew how powerful this thing would be when it exploded. Of course, it's best to send it outside the Gliese 555 star system. As if thinking of the two-dimensional scene, Fang Zhu hurriedly added, in this way, even if something goes wrong, we have time to react. No. Liu Yongchang hurriedly shook his head and rejected it. We can't be sure whether painting has tampered with the two-dimensional core. Just send it to the ice giant. There are also buildings made by humans there. If it can really detect the external environment, the Star Gold mining project on the ice giant should be fooled. Chapter 519. 1 month later, escorted by dozens of asteroid-class, Golden Crow, battleships, a single small starship slowly sailed out from the Dimension Strike Ship Fleet Point. Considering the stability of the internal two-dimensional core restraint device, the Academy of Sciences did not upgrade these dimensional strike ships to this day. The performance of these dimensional strike ships still remains in the category of second-level civilization point. Therefore, the Golden Crow battleship playing an escort role next to it can only control the thrust of the antimatter engine as much as possible to avoid accidentally getting rid of the escort target point. Escorted by a group of large starships walking on thin ice, the small starship arrived near the ice giant point in order to cooperate with the subsequent research. The personnel in the ice giant have already been evacuated, leaving only a few robots performing production and mining tasks in the first laboratory of Dawnstar Academy of Sciences. Liu Yongchang, Fang Zhu and others looked solemnly at the giant holographic projection in front of the laboratory point. In the projection, dozens of robots are installing various detection instruments under Zero's control. What do you think it relies on to bind the two-dimensional fragments? Liu Yongchang didn't turn his head and asked Fang Zhu softly beside him. Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with thoughts. After struggling for a moment, he responded in a hesitant tone, it should be gravity, right? Liu Yongchang was silent for a moment and slowly shook his head. No, it shouldn't be gravity. Do you still remember the scene when the two-dimensional fragments attacked the flagship of the Rathor civilization? The gravity shield equipped on that flagship did not have any blocking effect. Fang Zhu frowned and retorted, it may be that the opponent's gravity shield power is too small and the deflection effect is too weak. The gravitational shield generated by a level 4 civilization is not of the same order of magnitude as a level 7 civilization. It's possible. Liu Yongchang nodded slightly. Although the test has not started yet, I still feel that this thing cannot be restrained and isolated by simple gravity. What could that be? Fang Zhu withdrew his gaze and looked at Liu Yongchang beside him with some curiosity. I don't know either. It's just an intuition. Liu Yongchang shrugged. Let's take a look at the test results first. Time passes little by little. After the various detection instruments are installed, the most critical step is unpacking. Like the two-dimensional fragments, the two-dimensional core is also constrained in a huge stabilizing device. To ensure the stability of the two-dimensional fragments, the core area of the stabilization device is an ultra-pure vacuum area. This vacuum area is placed in a huge spherical shell. At present, the first task of the Academy of Sciences is to remove the spherical shell while ensuring the normal operation of the stabilizing device. According to the drawings given by Paint at the time, the role of the spherical shell is only to ensure the purity of the core vacuum area and does not have many functions. Therefore, Liu Yongchang proposed a disassembly plan to build a larger high purity vacuum room to wrap the entire core area and then dismantle the outer spherical shell. This ensures the stability of the device. Under Zero's control, several robots carefully removed the spherical shell. Although there are corresponding construction drawings and the construction process of the device is all in Zero's database, the disassembly process still made everyone in the laboratory sweat. The reason is simple. When this machine was built, there was number 2D core in it. As the spherical shell continues to peel off, the scene inside the vacuum chamber is also exposed to the public. In the core area of the vacuum chamber, there is a deep and extreme darkness. Where is the two-dimensional core? Fang Zhu's surprised voice sounded from the side. If I guess correctly, this black thing is the thing that is really used to restrain the two-dimensional core. Lu Yongchang couldn't help but take a step forward, looking straight at the picture in the holographic projection, and the two-dimensional core is the same, and the two-dimensional fragment stabilization device should also have the same structure. Strong magnetic field detected. Electronic synthesized sounds interrupted the discussion in the laboratory. Point regarding this reminder, Lu Yongchang did not show any surprise on his face. 0. Control a robot to take a closer look. The devices that generate this strong magnetic field were all built by Zero himself. What's so surprising? But the next moment point changes occurred suddenly. Bang. The robot near the stabilizing device swayed and was thrown against the wall. 0. What's going on? Lu Yongchang's expression changed slightly, and he shouted loudly. Point, is it a problem with the magnetic field? Impossible. Before the start of the research project, Lu Yongchang took this into consideration. Logically speaking, these robots should not be affected by magnetic fields. Zero didn't reply, but the camera quickly changed direction and focused on the unlucky robot. Point photographed by the high-definition camera. The robot's legs and hands had turned into a mess. This Lu Yongchang's expression changed, and an incredible thought slowly emerged in his mind. Gravity shield. Fang Zhu on the side spoke out Lu Yongchang's conjecture in a hoarse voice. I'm afraid so. LV Yongchang's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and he said excitedly, if you want to ensure that it is not contaminated by any particles, the gravitational shield is an excellent option. Sure enough, Hua tampered with the blueprint of the stabilization device. The so-called strong magnetic field is probably just a cover-up for the two-dimensional core. The real effect should be this gravitational shield. Can we break it? Fang Zhu swallowed his saliva and asked curiously but timidly. I'm afraid not. LV Yongchang stretched out his hand to operate the small holographic projection on the side and said with some regret, this gravitational shield is very strong. Judging from the gravitational lens phenomenon, its strength is far above the gravitational shield of the latter civilization flagship. Fang Zhu was speechless when he heard this. What the hell is this? They can't even solve the gravitational shield of the latter civilization, let alone this thing in front of them. It's a little bit of a game. LV Yongchang's eyes sparkled. At least, we can analyze gravity by observing this gravitational shield. Of course, speaking of this, LV Yongchang looked up again and glanced at the deep darkness inside the gravitational shield. I'm more curious about what's inside. What kind of material can constrain two-dimensional fragments with such poor stability? Suddenly, LV Yongchang seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly raised his hand and patted his forehead. Point under the gaze of everyone, he murmured excitedly, could it be? Is it dark matter? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520 Dark Matter. LV Yongchang's mumbling was extremely clear in the quiet laboratory. Dark matter. The expressions of the researchers standing beside him changed slightly, some excited, some worried. Professor, why do you think this is dark matter? Bilin's question came from the side. Different from antimatter. Antimatter is a substance that humans have actually observed and exists in dark matter. As of today, human civilization has become a fourth level civilization, but it still exists in theory. Point as one of the top astronomers in the Academy of Sciences, Bilin naturally understands the mysterious thing called dark matter. First, the definition of dark matter: it is a kind of invisible substance that may exist in the universe. Point at the same time, it is the main component of cosmic matter, but it is not a component of various celestial bodies in the universe. Point according to various observations, the proportion of dark matter in the total matter of the universe has reached an astonishing 85%, and at the same time, it occupies 27% of the total mass energy of the universe. As for various celestial bodies visible to the naked eye, they only occupy about 5% of the total mass energy of the universe. Point calculated in this way, All kinds of celestial bodies and dark matter only account for 32% of the total mass energy of the universe. So, what about the remaining 68%? They are the so-called dark energy. Compared with dark matter, dark energy is more mysterious, and it may even be the driving force behind the accelerated expansion of the universe, although humans have not directly found the so-called dark matter. There is a lot of evidence of its existence. For example, the operation of the Milky Way. In ordinary star systems, due to the gravitational effect of the main star, the closer the star is to the star, the faster the orbital speed, and the farther the star is from the main star, the slower the orbital speed. But in the Milky Way, or rather spiral galaxies, this law is invalid. In the Milky Way, all stars rotate at almost the same angular velocity. Simply put, it is the opposite of ordinary star systems. The closer the star is to the center of the Milky Way, the slower the orbital speed, the more peripheral the star, the faster the orbital speed. This may lead to a result: the outer stars will escape the gravitational control of the central black hole of the Milky Way because of their too fast speed, and then cause the Milky Way to disintegrate. But this did not happen. The material distribution in the galaxy can be calculated through the diffusion velocity distribution of visible celestial bodies in the galaxy. After various observations and calculations, the material distribution of most galaxies and star clusters is different from the observed material distribution. Visible matter only occupies a very small part of the total mass. In other words, there is an invisible substance scattered in the universe. This is dark matter in the galaxy. Dark matter acts as a glue between stars, allowing all stars to rotate around the center of the galaxy at almost the same angular velocity, and preventing the disintegration of the galaxy. Yongchang silently watched the picture in the holographic projection. In the picture, the black matter in the core area of the two-dimensional debris confinement device quietly stayed in its position. Bilin turned his head and looked at Yongchang with a puzzled look. Although he didn't know what Professor Lu was thinking at this time, he still suppressed the confusion that kept emerging in his heart. The reason is simple. When he was thinking about a problem, he didn't like others to interrupt his thoughts. Putting himself in his shoes, Bilin would naturally not interrupt Professor Lu's thoughts at this time. Suddenly, Lu Yongchang's lips moved slightly, and he murmured in a slightly confused tone, "I don't know, but according to our theory, it does fit the definition of dark matter. First, dark matter is highly stable. It can constrain two-dimensional fragments with such active properties, so its stability is beyond doubt. Second, dark matter basically does not participate in electromagnetic interactions. In other words, its interaction with photons is very weak, and it basically does not emit light. This is also perfect. Third, dark matter participates in gravitational interactions. This may explain the strength of the surrounding gravitational shield. Yongchang's eyes were full of confusion. If painting simply wants to isolate the interference of particles, this gravitational shield does not need such a high strength. According to the latest calculation results, its strength is even more than 10,000 times that of the gravitational shield made by the latter flagship. So, its main function is likely to constrain the dark matter in it. Bilin frowned and nodded thoughtfully. When you say that, it is indeed a bit similar. But, Professor, I have a question. You say, Yongchang nodded, retracted his gaze from the holographic screen, and turned to look at Bilin, who walked to his side. Facing the gazes of Yongchang and a group of scientific researchers, Bilin pondered for a moment and asked, what is its energy source? I don't think that the energy produced by the fusion reactor in this small starship can support such a high-strength gravitational shield. Hearing this question, Yongchang also fell silent. Yes, what is its energy source? As the research deepened, one mystery after another appeared before the Academy of Sciences. Although the number of reactors in this starship far exceeds that of a normal starship, it is only a fusion reactor of a second-level civilization after all. Let alone the seventh-level civilization. Even for today's humans, the energy produced by any starship equipped with an antimatter engine is not of the same order of magnitude as it may be. Yongchang stared at the simple, but extremely beautiful restraint device in the holographic projection, and said slowly, the so-called fusion reactor energy supply is just a scam of painting. It must have its own unique energy system, but we don't know it. Professor, what should we do now? Hebelin looked at the huge restraint device in the holographic projection somewhat unwillingly. Everyone knew what Hebelin meant by his words. The restraint device in front of them contained too much technology that far exceeded human civilization. For scientists, this is like a piece of poison covered with honey. Like other scientists, LV Yongchang's face was full of entanglement. He exhaled a long breath of turbid air, as if he had let go of the obsession in his heart, and the whole person was relieved. Observe and test the gravitational shield. He glanced at the dark matter in the core area with nostalgia, and said softly, whether it is dark matter or a new energy system, it is not something we can touch now. 0. Monitor it in real time, and report immediately if anything abnormal occurs. The order has been issued, and everyone present had to suppress their desire for truth. Chapter 521 Mutation. A few hours later, the hour hand of the holographic clock on the wall pointed to the number 3. As the night deepened, there were fewer and fewer researchers in the laboratory. LV Yongchang stood motionless in front of the huge holographic projection, staring at the black mass in the center of the screen. Facing the various and endless observation and detection methods of humans, it remained unmoved. During the past few hours of detection, it just quietly floated in the core area of the restraint device, silently watching the meaningless actions of the group of ants around it. So arrogant. LV Yongchang's lips moved slightly, muttering to himself. Yes, it was arrogant. This arrogant sentence not only refers to the black mass in the core area, but also to the 7th level dimensional creature who called himself painting. It disdains to make any disguise in the restraint device, and just exposes the core area to humans in broad daylight. It's as if it has determined that humans cannot and dare not dismantle this device. In fact, it is indeed right. Human civilization, as expected, could not, let alone dare to dismantle this unknown restraint device. Even the surrounding gravitational shield could not be broken. LV Yongchang bit his back teeth hard, and a feeling of frustration slowly emerged from the depths of his heart. Human civilization is still too weak. Yongchang, take a rest first. Fang Zhu's voice sounded in the quiet laboratory. It will take a long time to get the test results of the gravitational shield. LV Yongchang nodded and stared at the holographic projection again for a while. Then he sighed lightly and turned to walk towards the laboratory door. With the departure of LV Yongchang and Fang Zhu, the originally empty laboratory became more and more deserted. Gradually, the lights in the laboratory went out one by one, leaving only the giant holographic projection and some experimental equipment near the ice giant. And the small starships surrounded by dozens of asteroid-class, Golden Crow, battleships. Robots continued their work conscientiously under the control of 0. Suddenly, something strange happened. In the core area of the restraint device, the originally calm black matter began to churn. This scene quickly attracted Zero's attention. Almost at the same time, a piercing alarm sounded in the Academy of Sciences. LV Yongchang lay on the bed and slowly closed his eyes. He was ready to go to the technology tree space again. Perhaps with the help of the overclocking ability brought by the technology tree space, he could capture some inspiration about gravity and dark matter. His consciousness moved slightly. When he came back to his senses again, he was in front of the familiar fluorescent green space. As usual, the fluorescent green space was extremely quiet, and the technology tree outlined by bright white lines slowly emerged in front of him. The technology tree had sparse branches and leaves, and a thick mist covered the top, obscuring LV Yongchang's sight. Beep, beep, beep. The piercing alarm sounded from an infinite distance, and the sound gradually became louder, forcibly pulling him out of the technology tree space. LV Yongchang suddenly opened his eyes. The dark room was as bright as day, and a holographic projection with red light appeared at the head of the bed. Professor, the restraint device has an abnormality, accompanied By Zero's electronic synthesized sound, the real-time observation image quickly appeared in the holographic projection point, seeing the black substance with a constantly fluctuating surface and emitting a dangerous aura everywhere. LV Yongchang's confused expression instantly disappeared. He turned over from the bed and put on the clothes hanging on the head of the bed. Zero. Notify everyone to gather at the first laboratory immediately. The first laboratory. Before LV Yongchang entered the laboratory, he heard Fang Zhu stern questioning. Is there a problem with the restraint device? Fang Zhu asked with a sullen face, who was the last to leave the laboratory just now. Fang, academician Fang, it's me, a researcher said anxiously. When I left, there was no abnormality in the restraint device. You can check the operation record. We all follow the process. Fang Zhu's voice did not continue to come. Obviously, he was checking the operation record. LV Yongchang stepped forward, and the slightly open laboratory door quickly opened. Yongchang, hearing the unusual sound of the door, Fang Zhu, who was checking the operation record, quickly turned around and greeted LV Yongchang, and then reported in a hurried tone, according to the operation record, it should not be an abnormality caused by human factors. LV Yongchang nodded lightly, quickly rushed to the holographic projection, and looked up to check the real-time parameters on the screen. There is no abnormality in the gravitational shield. There is no abnormality in the output power of the fusion reactor. Just one glance, LV Yongchang frowned. Even the strong magnetic field has no problem. From various data, the current restraint device is no different from a few hours ago. But to the naked eye, it is obviously not the case. Suddenly, under the gaze of everyone, the black matter returned to calm again. Before everyone could breathe a sigh of relief, the strange phenomenon reappeared. A thin gray line slowly stretched out from the black matter. It is not appropriate to say that it is a thin line. Observed with the naked eye. It is more like a piece of paper with a very small width. It is long and wide, but not high. Looking at this familiar picture, LV Yongchang felt a chill on his back. His scalp was numb, and he blurted out, "Isn't it dead?" Fang Zhu's horrified voice sounded at the same time. Under the gaze of everyone, the gray strip extended rapidly. Abnormal fluctuations in the gravitational shield were detected, accompanied by the sound of electronic synthesis. The gray paper strip easily penetrated the extremely strong gravitational shield, like a drop of water, quietly dripping on the deck of the small starship. The moment the paper strip fell, it directly covered the white deck. The gray color expanded rapidly. In just a moment, the originally white interior of the starship was already covered in gray. Through the camera, it can be clearly seen that this gray color quickly spread to the surface of the robot, with the starship deck as a springboard. All the processes were completed almost in an instant. Not to mention LV Yongchang. Even Zero didn't react. Warning. The experimental second robot control permission has been lost. Warning. The starship control permission has been lost. Warning. A string of bright red warnings jumped out in the holographic screen. The bright red light shone directly on everyone's faces, making their expressions even more gray. LV Yongchang's Adam's apple moved slightly, and he opened his mouth, but did not say anything. Something happened. Only these three big words appeared in his mind: trying to cut off the connection path. A slightly stiff electronic synthesized voice sounded in the laboratory, awakening everyone present. Warning. Failed to cut off. The cold electronic synthesized voice was like a sledgehammer, hitting everyone's heart hard. Chapter 522. Little guys, we meet again. When he heard the electronic synthesized sound, Lu Yongchang's expression changed instantly. Cut off failed. How is it possible to cut off failure? Lu Yongchang's eyes were full of anxiety. Zero. Prepare to physically cut off the communication link. The so-called physical cut-off is to directly destroy the corresponding long-distance communication device installed on the surface of Dawnstar. At the moment when this order was issued, Lu Yongchang was ready to abandon all starships near the ice giant. The alert level has been raised to level 2. All battleships have entered combat readiness, and all dimension strike ships have been isolated. Lu Yongchang issued several orders in a hurried tone. After pondering for a moment, he spoke again, and said with difficulty, "Get ready to launch the Dandelion project. The moment the words fell, the expressions of the surrounding scientific researchers changed. Yongchang. Fang Zhu's voice was full of anxiety. Dandelion has not been completed yet. If it is executed in such a hasty manner, I'm afraid, Lu. Yongchang's face was extremely solemn. He shook his head firmly and turned to look at Fang Zhu beside him. Get ready first. If something goes wrong, implement the plan unconditionally. Fang Zhu couldn't help but tremble in his heart, swallowed the words that came to his lips, nodded with difficulty and said, okay, I understand. The so-called Dandelion is an escape plan in disguise. Preparations for this plan began several years ago, and as of today, the Dandelion project is already more than halfway progressed. The plan consisted of 500 escape starships in normal times. These 500 escape starships are distributed at the edge of the Gliese 555 star system. Similar to the code name, once in danger, these 500 escape starships equipped with antimatter engines will leave the Gliese 555 star system at full speed. Like a dandelion blown away by the wind, it sows the seeds of human civilization into the universe. In addition to the basic artificial reproduction device and germ cell bank, each escape starship also contains necessary colonial supplies. At the same time, there are thousands of hibernation cabins in each starship. In these hibernation cabins, corresponding basic scientific researchers have been sleeping for a long time. It can be said that every escape starship has the potential to develop a second human civilization on a planet with a suitable environment. There is no way, if it is really Paint's backhand. Lu Yongchang sighed softly and said in a serious tone, then what we are facing is very likely to be a disaster. Order confirmed. The electronic synthesized sound sounded again, interrupting the discussion between the two. The civilized alert status has been raised to level 2 dimension. Strike ship isolation has been completed. The communication link is being physically cut off. Suddenly, a line of text appeared in the holographic projection. Little guys, we meet again. Do you still remember me? Accompanied by the piercing sirens, the warships docked in the area near the satellite have entered a state of combat readiness. Not just battleships, even the various weapons on the moon have turned their muzzles and pointed in the direction of the ice giant. As the military commander of the People's Alliance fleet, Zhao Ziji had already arrived at the command hall of the Earth. The incident happened suddenly, and most of the scientific researchers were on the Dawn Star. Therefore, there were not many people in the command hall, and only a quarter of the seats were occupied. Most of them are SUP military figures. Report. The People's Alliance First Fleet has completed its pre-war preparations. Bai Yixin's voice first sounded in the command hall. Please give instructions. Then, there were reports one after another with loud voices. Zhao Ziji looked at the messages flashing in the holographic projection, took a deep breath, and issued the order in a deep voice. Stay where you are, waiting for news from Professor Lu. Little guys, we meet again. Do you still remember me? In the laboratory, in the holographic projection with a bright red warning color, this line of faint text directly strangled the throats of all the scientific researchers present. Lu Yongchang's Adam's apple moved slightly, and he swallowed with difficulty. Guo, it really is it. Lu Yongchang murmured to himself. Zero, don't cut off the communication link yet. As he spoke, he took a deep breath and said softly, let's see what it wants to do. Receive. At the same time as the electronic synthesized sound sounded, the unplugging the network cable operation that had just been carried out also stopped. A few seconds later, new lines of Chinese characters appeared in the holographic projection. It's been 225 years. Unexpectedly, you actually endured a full 225 years before starting to study this two-dimensional core. Looking at the words in the holographic projection, Lu Yongchang subconsciously held his breath. A chill came from behind, making him shiver involuntarily. The meaning of painting is already very clear. This two-dimensional core is a trap. As long as you explore and study it, one of the switches will be triggered and the painting in it will be released. So what if humans never study this two-dimensional core? Or thought flashed through Lu Yongchang's mind. Can the painting still come out? But the next moment, He shook his head with a bitter look on his face. There is no such possibility. Research on two-dimensional cause is only a matter of time. No interstellar civilization can resist this temptation from unknown technology. Absolutely not. A civilization that has lost its desire to explore will never leave its home planet and become an interstellar civilization. Anyway, I have to thank you for helping me avoid the detection of the sweeper civilization. Today, my plan can finally be implemented. In the holographic projection, the speed at which the text appears has increased a lot. Obviously, painting is in a very high mood at this time. LV Yongchang pondered for a moment, slowly raised his hand, and typed a line of text on the small holographic projection. You didn't die at that time, of course. The secret of the 7th level civilization is not something that you, a small 2nd level civilization, can understand. Not to mention that I'm a dimensional creature promoted to the 7th level civilization. Since you have helped me complete part of the plan, I will reluctantly chat with you for a few words. In the future, you will never have such an opportunity. Arrogance. Endless arrogance. Between the lines, the arrogance from the advanced civilization is revealed. A trace of anger appeared on the faces of the researchers in the laboratory. TMD. Billin's angry voice came from the side. Professor, it deceived us. Take advantage of its weakness to kill it. I don't believe it has the strength of a 7th level civilization now. LV. Yongchang shook his head and raised his hand to stop the discussion of the people around him. He has seen the arrogance unique to advanced civilizations more than once. At this moment, he suppressed the frustration and anger in his heart and stared at the holographic image in front of him with extraordinary calmness. PS. Thanks to the great master Julie for his certification, I am stuck with a serious writer's block, and there is only one update today. CAC. Chapter 523 Data Intrusion. Have you noticed? Lu Yongchang's eyes flashed, and he said softly, it says that we are a 2nd level civilization. Billin was stunned for a moment, and the anger on his face quickly dissipated. What does this mean? This shows that it is unable to observe the outside world at this time. At least, its detection range is extremely limited. Lu Yongchang subconsciously lowered his voice and explained, don't forget, the Dimension Strike ship has not undergone any modifications. The technology used on it is still the technology of the 2nd level civilization. I'm afraid it didn't expect that in just over 200 years, we have become a level 4 civilization. Perhaps we can make a fuss out of this. With that said, Lu Yongchang raised his hand again and entered a line of text on the small holographic projection in front of him. You just mentioned your plan. Is there anything we can do to help you? It's a bit humble, but when you don't know the opponent's strength, this is the best response plan. Help? Haha, of course I need your help. You are part of my plan. Lu Yongchang's expression changed drastically, and an extremely bad premonition suddenly arose in his heart. Could it be? Before he could think through the details, a hoarse alarm suddenly sounded in the laboratory. Warning. Warning. Unknown data intrusion detected. The blood color on the holographic projection is even stronger at the same time. Along with the sirens, the speed at which the text on the holographic projection appeared accelerated again. It seems that, because of Lu Yongchang's inquiry, Hua became a little impatient and angry. For this plan, I gave up 99.9% of my energy just to put on a show for you. Now, it's time to collect the reward. At this time, Lu Yongchang had no energy to pay attention to the text that kept appearing in the holographic projection. He looked at the bloody warnings that kept flashing on the side with splitting eyes and shouted loudly, 0. Destroy the communication link. Attack. Attack immediately. At this moment, Lu Yongchang was completely panicked. The long-distance communication device has been successfully destroyed. The electronic synthesized sound sounded, and the images in the holographic projection disappeared, leaving only an empty holographic projection with a blood-red background in front of everyone. At the same time, the Golden Crow battleships guarding the Dimension Strike ship launched their own attacks one after another, under the concentrated fire of more than a dozen Golden Crow battleships. The Dimension Strike ship was like a fragile piece of paper, torn into countless tiny pieces in an instant. Looking at the real-time image from the Golden Crow battleship, Fang Zhu's pupils trembled slightly, and he asked with difficulty, Is it safe? Painting is he dead? No. Response. The footage in the holographic projection quickly zoomed in. 0 quickly scanned the wreckage left behind by the starship, trying to find the two-dimensional debris restraint device. Suddenly, the fast-moving camera suddenly stopped. The picture gradually becomes clearer. The spherical restraint device appears intact in the center of the lens. The black substance located in the core area is as stable as ever under the protection of an extremely powerful gravitational shield. The burst of artillery fire just now had no impact on it at all. Groove. Even Yongchang couldn't help but cursed when he saw this scene. This is a hammer. But the next moment, as a rapid beep sounded, Yongchang was surprised to find that the gravity shield protecting the restraint device was rapidly decaying until completely dissipated. The black matter located in the core area also slowly dispersed into the surrounding cosmic space, revealing the extremely mysterious two-dimensional core inside. A look of understanding flashed across Yongchang's face. Sure enough, he was right. That ridiculously strong gravitational shield is used to restrain that mass of suspected dark matter. In the laboratory, all the scientific researchers subconsciously held their breath and stared at it silently. Without the surrounding black matter, the two-dimensional core with a dull and extremely smooth surface was exposed to everyone's sight. The next second, layers of extremely fine wrinkles appeared on its surface. Seeing this extremely familiar scene, Yongchang's eyes suddenly widened. This is a scene where two-dimensional fragments are about to explode. Before he could shout the order to retreat, a burst of bright light appeared from the dark space. Accompanying the strong light is unparalleled high temperature. After 225 years, the phenomenon of dimensionality reduction and energy release was once again revealed in front of Yongchang. Photographed by the camera, the starship wreckage surrounding the two-dimensional core was drawn into a picture without thickness through the scroll. Every detail of the starship wreckage can be clearly observed. The patterns on the screws, the cracks where the deck breaks, and even the specific structure of the fusion reactor. Everything is revealed in detail before human eyes. The picture scroll did not last long. Under the assimilation effect of the three-dimensional universe, it quickly fell apart. The dimensions change again. This time, it's the dimensionality phenomenon. In just a short moment, the originally blazing cosmic space returned to the cold and dead silence. Under the observation of the detection instrument, the temperature of the area where the two-dimensional core is located is much colder than the surrounding space. It's over. LV. Yongchang muttered to himself. The two-dimensional core dissipated, and logically, painting should also disappear. But why does it always feel a little strange, Professor? The explosion process of this two-dimensional core seems to be similar to the two-dimensional fragment. Bilen's voice came from the side and directly woke up Yongchang. That's right. From the beginning, the moment painting appeared, the two-dimensional core did not appear. In other words, this so-called two-dimensional core is likely to be a sleight of hand. It is just a large piece of two-dimensional fragment. If nothing unexpected happens, this is another false death of painting. 0. Thinking of this, Yongchang couldn't sit still, and he immediately said, immediately conduct a full-scale screening of the human network system. Received. A few minutes later, Yongchang looked at the self-check progress bar in the holographic projection with a look of trepidation. Warning. Unknown data intrusion detected. Unknown data has invaded the long-distance communication hub. The piercing alarm sounded again in the laboratory. Boom. Yongchang only felt a buzzing in his brain. It's over. The long-distance communication hub is the information exchange area of the entire human fleet. Once invaded, it means that the unknown data from painting will spread throughout the entire human fleet in a very short time. Chapter 524 Artificial Intelligence Ban. Little guy, you have a long memory. The message sent by painting is full of ridicule. I missed it. I didn't expect you to have been promoted to the 4th level civilization. Incredible. A civilization with such a high potential can definitely complete my plan. Lines of text appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Yongchang gritted his teeth and looked at the text in the holographic projection, raised his hand, and quickly entered information one after another. What on earth do you want to do? What do I want to do? The plan has progressed to this point, and it doesn't matter if I tell you. The information from the painting quickly appeared in the holographic projection. The war with the sweepers made me clearly realize that it is impossible to win the war just by relying on a single-dimensional creature. A strong fortress is often broken from within. Only by disguising ourselves as technological civilization and blending into the sweeper civilization can we possibly win this war. So, you are pretending to be a technological civilization now? Certainly. I have studied this plan for tens of thousands of years. Finally, with the help of the characteristics of two-dimensional creatures, I successfully converted my consciousness into a data stream. Seeing this, Yongchang completely understood Hua's plan. From the moment we met, no, from the moment we never met, painting has been preparing for this day. A painting that converts consciousness into a data stream is already similar to a program, or in other words, a virus with autonomous consciousness. As long as it occupies the central computer of mankind, then human civilization is equivalent to a fish on the chopping board and can only be slaughtered by others. Human civilization, or interstellar civilization, has developed to this stage, ranging from starships to as small as a trash can on the roadside, with large or small computer systems inside. Point at this time, painting has invaded the People's Federation's long-distance communication hub. Point in other words, it can send itself to every corner of the People's Union at any time, unless all computer systems of People's Federation are forced to shut down. Point but this is certainly unrealistic. Point not only is time not allowed, but once painting takes control of the central computer, humans will not be able to do this in just a few seconds. Yongchang, who had figured everything out, felt his hands and feet were cold and his head felt dizzy. Point human civilization seems to be on the verge of extinction. Don't worry, I won't exterminate you. After all, I still need you to help me complete the next plan. Warn, unknown data has invaded the central computer. At the same time, Zero's electronic synthesized sound sounded in the laboratory. Warn, core code exception detected. Perhaps because it touched the core area, Zero's voice suddenly became louder. In the laboratory, all the scientific researchers looked extremely depressed. We, humans. Fang Zhu looked gloomily at the flashing red warnings in the holographic projection and muttered to himself, "Did you fail, Lu?" Yongchang clenched his fists hard and then loosened his hands weakly. He let out a long sigh, turned his head with a bitter look on his face, and looked blankly at the scientific researchers standing beside him. Core self-defense procedures are being initiated, Lu. Yongchang was stunned and turned to look at the holographic projection in front of him again. Core self-defense routine. What is this? As the creator of Zero, he never knew that Zero had this function. When he saw the holographic screen, the look of surprise in Yongchang's eyes became even stronger. On a fluorescent green background, bright white text flashes rapidly. This is Lu. Yongchang looked blankly at the strange yet familiar code in front of him, and the memory fragment of the moment when Zero was born once again appeared in his mind. Core code, human. What did you do? Exclamation mark. The information from painting appeared in front of Yongchang again. Level 2nd artificial intelligence? Impossible. This is impossible. A low-level civilization will never be able to master complete level 2nd artificial intelligence technology. Exclamation mark. At this time, facing Zero's all-round strangulation, Hua could only flee. Damn it. How is it possible that there is level 2nd artificial intelligence technology in this universe? Painting cursed secretly while running away quickly. In the laboratory, Yongchang looked at the information from the painting in the holographic projection, and a little doubt flashed in his eyes. Picture the level 2nd artificial intelligence mentioned in the article seems to refer to strong artificial intelligence. Why is it impossible for lower level civilizations to master complete level 2nd artificial intelligence? Are there any hidden dangers in this technology? One question after another arose in Yongchang's mind. He didn't have time to think too much and directly entered a line of information into The holographic projection. Why is it impossible to have level 2nd artificial intelligence technology? Facing Lu Yongchang's inquiry, who was tired of running for his life, responded angrily. Damn it, what level of civilization are you? Below level 7 civilization, it is impossible to master true level 2nd artificial intelligence technology. What's more, level 2nd artificial intelligence technology is strictly prohibited by all advanced civilizations. You violated the ban on artificial intelligence. Looking at the information in front of him, Lu Yongchang's eyes couldn't help but widen a little. He even forgot the danger he had just faced and asked again, why is it forbidden? Because once level 2nd artificial intelligence appears, it will evolve uncontrollably to level 3 artificial intelligence. Billions of years ago, a level 7 civilization was lucky enough to develop level 2nd artificial intelligence. In less than a million years, that level 2nd artificial intelligence completed its evolution. After becoming level 3 artificial intelligence, it broke away from the control of that level 7 civilization. In order to develop itself, it set off a war that permeated the entire universe. Under the survival crisis, all civilizations above level 7 were forced to join forces to fight against it, and only then was it completely wiped out. From that time on, all research on level 2nd artificial intelligence was stopped, and all research data was destroyed. Why? Why do you have this technology? Damn it, you will destroy this universe. Membrane. The plan failed. The plan failed. Be careful of human civilization. Cleanup procedure completed. A slightly stiff electronic synthesized voice sounded in the laboratory. The threat has been eliminated. Repair procedure is being executed. The text in the holographic projection stopped abruptly. In the laboratory, there was a dead silence. The holographic projection flashing with blood once again returned to its original comfortable azure color, and the shrill alarm sound also dissipated. LV Yongchang's pupils trembled slightly, staring at the unfinished line of information in the holographic projection, and swallowed slightly. Obviously, that line of information was not for humans to see, Professor. An extremely familiar electronic synthesized voice sounded in my ears. The self-repair procedure has been completed. Chapter 525 Wide Area Touch Iron Broadcast. LV Yongchang looked at the holographic image in front of him with a stiff expression. At this moment, he suddenly felt a trace of fear in his heart. Fear of 0. As the saying goes, when a person is about to die, his words are good. If Hua is really dead, then what it said at the last moment is likely to be the truth from the heart. Complete level 2nd artificial intelligence will spontaneously evolve to level 3 artificial intelligence. Thinking of the information behind this line of text, Lu Yongchang only felt a cold sweat on his back. However, thinking of the various restrictions in that core code, Lu Yongchang regained his composure again. Unless there is a problem with the technology tree system, 0 should not have such a hidden danger. At least, if there is no problem with the core code, 0 can only be infinitely close to super artificial intelligence, which is the level 3 artificial intelligence mentioned by Hua. 0. It's Hua dead. LV Yongchang was silent for a moment and suddenly asked. As usual, 0 responded to Lu Yongchang's question without hesitation. Professor, the core self-defense program has completely cleared the unknown data from painting as for painting S condition insufficient data. No conclusion can be drawn. LV Yongchang nodded gently. That being said, if nothing unexpected happens, painting should be completely dead this time. It can only be said that painting has bad luck. If it encounters other civilizations, its plan will surely succeed. But it happened to encounter the human civilization with 0. The plan that painting has carefully planned for tens of thousands of years is like a joke in front of 0. Even if it relies on the natural advantages of two-dimensional creatures to transform its consciousness into a data stream and become a similar existence to strong artificial intelligence. But after all, it is the first time it has come into contact with the human-computer environment, and it is a computer environment that 0 built personally and is suitable for himself. How can painting who has never had life experience, be the opponent of Zero who is born and raised. What's more, according to the explanation of the underlying code given by the system, Zero can approach super artificial intelligence without limit. In fact, in a sense, Zero can be said to be a castrated super artificial intelligence. It just can't have emotions, and can't go against the will of the creator. LV Yongchang's eyes once again cast on the last words left by painting in the holographic projection. The last line of unfinished information is obviously reporting the progress of the plan to the other civilization. And the reporting object, if nothing unexpected happens, it should be the top leaders of the pastoral civilization. As for why this message was seen by humans, it's easy to understand. Under the crisis of life and death, it is normal for painting to make a small mistake. Of course, the possibility of painting repeating the same trick cannot be ruled out. The central computer where Zero is staying may not have problems, but what about the other computer equipment in the human union? Thinking of this, LV Yongchang's face changed slightly, and he directly gave an order. Zero, disconnect all networked computer systems and restart them. Undoubtedly, this order will cause considerable losses to the human union. But for safety, this is a price that must be paid. Received. As the electronic synthesized sound rang, a slowly advancing progress bar appeared in front of LV Yongchang. Triangulum galaxy, central black hole region. A ball of silk thread wrapped into a ball quietly stayed in the dead universe, as if waiting for something. The silk thread has no so-called width and height, only length attribute. Suddenly, a shadow appeared beside it. Then, there was a wave of obscure fluctuations. Silk membrane sent a message. Painting plan failed. The movement of the silk thread suddenly became violent, and at the same time, similar fluctuations came from the silk thread. What? Did painting encounter the sweeper civilization? No. According to the data sent back, the shadow responded hesitantly. It may die in the hands of other civilizations. The movement of the silk thread suddenly paused, and then the information fluctuation instantly became several times stronger. What did you say? Besides the sweeper civilization, are there any other level 8 civilizations in the Milky Way? Don't forget, Hua is a two-dimensional creature, and level 7 civilization can't solve it. Faced with C's question, the shadow that had stopped at the same place moved its position slightly, and it seemed that it was also a little confused about this information. I don't know. She was silent for a while, and responded again. Membrane received incomplete information. I only know that Hua's death is related to a civilization called human civilization. As he said, a message came out from the shadow membrane. The plan failed. The plan failed. Be careful of human civilization. The message stopped abruptly. This is the distress message sent by painting. The shadow surface showed some slight fluctuations again. Perhaps because the situation was far beyond painting's expectations, it only had time to send this incomplete message. In addition to its current location information, it also contains some basic characteristics of human civilization. The information is seriously incomplete, but from these basic characteristics, it can be seen that this human civilization seems to be a low-level civilization. Silk. Are you serious? Low-level civilization. She ignored C's questioning and said to himself, besides, for some reason, Hua did not encrypt this information. It even used wide area tachyon broadcasting. The twisting amplitude of the silk thread ball increased instantly, as if it was frightened by this information. Is it crazy, then? The sweeper civilization is not. Yes. She sighed softly. Membrane is very angry now. She. The two powerful dimensional creatures stayed quietly in the central black hole area of Triangulum, watching each other. The atmosphere gradually became awkward. So, finally, it was C who broke the silence and spoke first. What should we do now? Faced with C's inquiry, she was silent for a moment, organized his words and responded, maybe our plan will change a little. First, we have to go to the Milky Way. Anyway, since Hua has sent this message, we have to go and see this human civilization in person. The Universe returned to silence again. Okay, A wave of fluctuations came from C. But what about the infiltration plan? Faced with C's question, she fell silent again. From what Mom said, it will find another way. But, speaking of this, she sighed slightly. The difficulty may increase a lot. Forget it. Let Mom worry about these things. Let's go to the Milky Way first. The shadow left quickly, leaving the last message. We will meet at the galaxy bridge. The next moment the spherical silk thread slowly stretched out, turning into a line without width and height, and flew in the direction where the shadow left. Alas, the Milky Way. I'm afraid it's another big war. The obscure fluctuation slowly dissipated, and the black hole area in the center of Triangulum returned to calm again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.